Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the ANC 6E Commission meeting. First Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. We are getting ourselves started. People are filing in. Welcome. Okay, 14 people. Got
You see,
some.
we need to move Kevin from the other side. Is he over there?
um,
I don't see him.
I do not see him either.
Okay, wait. Let me just-
What about Frank? Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to ANC 6E Commission meeting. I am your chair, Michael Eichler. We are here to get the meeting started. So I would like to call the meeting to order and invite our secretary to perform a roll call.
All right, good evening. Is 6E01 here?
Present.
6E02 present, 6E03, 6E04,
Oh, here.
6E05,
Present.
6E06,
Present.
6E07. Appears we have 5 of 7 commissioners. We have a quorum to do business.
Wonderful. And let's see, I'm doing double duty over here today, so thank you for your patience as I handle a couple of things in real time. Oh, and there's one of our commissioners.
I've got it. I got it.
I got it. Okay, Alex, you want to do that roll call for 6E03 one more time?
Yeah, 6E03.
Present.
All right, we have 6 of 7 commissioners.
Okay,
We still have
great.
a quorum.
Great. And just one last check for Kevin, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So approval of the agenda. Agenda was duly posted and circulated last week. And do I have on the ANC website and Twitter, et cetera, do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. We have an agenda. Good to know.
Michael, we should announce that DC water is not coming.
Yeah, so that's true. We do have one agenda item change, and we do not have DC Water here tonight unless my contact there gets back to me and decides to join the call. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about minutes. We had some July minutes that were circulated by our assistant Karen to the commission. They have been reviewed, and do we have a motion to approve the July minutes?
So moved.
Okay, in a second.
I second.
And any discussion about the July minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Alex, did you respond?
I'll abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, that's great. So 5 yays, 1 abstention, and 0 nays and 1 abstention. Thank you for that. Okay, and then we also had a mini meeting in August that a handful of commissioners were able to attend. And we had minutes for that were drafted and circulated amongst the commission members. Can I get a motion to approve the August meeting minutes?
So moved.
Moved.
Oh, okay. I'll say that Alex Lopez was better, faster to the punch on that one. So Frank, would you want a second?
Your second.
Any discussion on the topic? All in favor of by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
And any abstentions? Okay, so that's 6 yeas, and then just moving on. Let's move on to police report from PSA. From 1D. Can we get our rep from 1D to be moved over as a panelist? 1D is the area south of New York Avenue. There we go. Welcome, Lieutenant McHugh. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I'll begin by talking about the two most significant events that we have experienced in the area since we last met, both of which occurred on Thursday, August the 25th. The first event was at 8:15 p.m. This was a homicide, a fatal shooting that occurred at the corner of 7th and I Street Northwest in front of the PNC Bank. In this case, we have identified a suspect, and images of that suspect have been released publicly. A little over 2 hours later at 10:40 p.m., while officers were still on the scene processing that homicide, a shooting occurred at 7th and H. In this case, 2 victims were struck by gunfire, an adult female and an adult male. Images of the suspect have been released to the public in that case as well. The investigation is progressing. We've received tremendous support from the community, and I'm confident that our detectives are going to close this case. With respect to what the crime data shows us, in August compared to July, we have seen significant decreases across many categories. Specifically, our efforts on motor vehicle theft that I discussed last time have worked as a result of the traffic enforcement, addressing double parked cars, reminding businesses of their role. Vehicle thefts are down 46% in the area. Similarly, our theft from auto numbers, our efforts in that category have worked as well, and we're down 16%. And overall theft is down 11% in the area. Our work on robberies continues. I believe we have stemmed the tide, and we did not have an increase or a decrease month over month, which I take as a positive sign, and now we can continue moving forward. So overall, we are trending in the right direction, but we still have work to do. I also understand that even if the numbers tell us one thing, community feelings and your observations of safety and general disorder are equally important, though somewhat more difficult to quantify. But we have heard your concerns about quality of life and general disorder crimes in the area. And we have dedicated supplemental resources, including our crime suppression team and our mountain bike unit, to do the proactive work while still allowing normal patrol officers to continue answering those emergency calls. These officers have been specifically tasked with targeting drug offenders and those contributing to that general disorder. So in the first days of this push, I had the team issue warnings to those drinking in public or urinating in alleys. We told them that we would be back tomorrow and the next day, and then the day after that, and we would begin making arrests. Some heeded our warning, but others must not have believed us, because when we came back that next day, conditions were still somewhat similar. So we began making arrests. In the last week of August and the first week of September, we made over 20 arrests in the neighborhood for drug distribution, firearm possession, drinking in public, and urinating in public. And I want to highlight that the group arrested for those disorderly crimes, the drinking in public, the urinating in public, many of them had pending violent crime cases. Some were wanted in DC Superior Court, and some were fugitives from as close as Virginia and as far away as Birmingham, Alabama. So while the Office of the Attorney General has not prosecuted any of these disorderly offenses that we've brought, our efforts, I think, have been fruitful, and through consistency, I'm hopeful that we will change behavior and the idea of what is acceptable in that community. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time, and I'll stick around if any pop up later.
Thank you so much. Real quick, before we go to commissioner comments, if anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you in turn. Or you can ask a question in the Q&A and we can have that question read to Lieutenant McHugh and he can respond in real time. So questions from the, and sorry, and if you are on the phone, I see one person on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Commissioner Nigro.
Oh, so Lieutenant, I was saying it, but when you were commenting about arresting people for urination, I mean, I wish you guys could cross New York Avenue. So I'm going to be talking about with our 3D people. So what's the push for that? Because I mean, I've been talking about that stuff forever. So
Sure. And if I may, I'll reiterate and clarify a point I made at the last meeting that I think was taken a bit out of context in that post article about Chinatown, specifically that I or MPD don't really have the tools or capability to address all of these issues. And what I said was that when police come to a scene, we have two tools on our tool belt. We have a set of handcuffs to take somebody to jail and a phone to make referrals to other city services. And generally, we do not like to arrest people that are suffering drug addiction, alcohol addiction, may need mental health services, things of that nature. And so we will always try to make those referrals to other agencies and try to get people help that they need before resorting to that other tool, which is the tool of arrest. We want to limit that. And so, you know, I've sat in this seat now for 3 months, and my first month was getting my feet wet. My second month was putting the plan in place, and the third month was hitting the ground running and having folks execute what we've asked them to do. And so I talked about manpower, and I talked about if we only have a certain number of officers in a PSA that need to address those 911 calls and be able to respond quickly, I can't have them being held out of service to process a drinking in public arrest or urinating in public arrest, because then God forbid there's a robbery, a shooting, a stabbing, they're not going to be there either to prevent it or to respond quickly. So if we're able to shift resources, if we're able to add more people, which is our crime suppression team, our mountain bike units, they're supplemental to what is already there. So having that resource shifted to my discretion to use in this area, I have been able to have them do that, to focus on that general disorder stuff, which I believe contributes to, you know, the atmosphere in the neighborhood. And if these things go unchecked to some extent, it creates an environment where drug dealers can come and set up and think that that's going to be acceptable here, that shootings are going to be acceptable here while our police are a block away. I mean, calling that brazen would be an understatement, right? I mean, they're shooting a block away from where we are. So I wanted to, and now that I've had those additional resources come in, I have been able to give those warnings and then follow through on the promise that we would make arrests. And like I said, you know, we've made the arrests. They didn't believe it was going to happen. We told them we're going to be back tomorrow too. And then we came back tomorrow. And on one day, we actually arrested the same person we arrested the day before for doing the same thing at the same location. But he spent the night in jail that time instead of getting a citation release because he now had the pending case. And like I said, we're encountering fugitives, people wanted out of state. And so these little, I don't like to call them petty crimes because they are crimes. They have allowed us to now use the other tools we have at our disposal, which are these warrant arrests, which are, you know, finding drugs on people, issuing stayaways from the area. And I think that's what it's going to take to change the behavior and change the idea that it's okay to set up lawn chairs and take over a public sidewalk and just be out there 24/7. And I don't think we can have that.
well, that's great. I hope you're going to be on the call when we talk about the 7-Eleven. Yes.
Yes.
Hang out. Okay, stay on the call. We're not going to talk about it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments or questions from other commissioners?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually going to be my exact question, Rochelle. So if you don't mind, I would just like to know from your perspective, Lieutenant, what is MPD's posture with respect to that 7-Eleven on K Street? I often see an MPD car kind of hanging in that little alleyway between the 7-Eleven and Stellina. On the other hand, I hear all kinds of kind of crazy stuff that happens inside the 7-Eleven. Someone recently told me that someone defecated inside of the 7-Eleven, and that these kinds of things seem to happen with some regularity. So could you help me understand how MPD is postured on that block and your relationship with that 7-Eleven and the kinds of things you guys are responding to or doing to prevent that sort of thing from happening?
Sure. So like you said, you do notice a presence there. It is somewhere where our officers do spend a lot of our time as a deterrent, but also responding to things that happen there. I am aware that we had a robbery that occurred there, not of the store, but of a person in the store. We actually closed that case with an arrest. The suspect came back to the scene while we were there taking the report, and he was arrested. There's a lot of spillover from the activity that occurs in that area on the 500 block of I, on the 800 block of Fifth. And so it's on my radar as just another area where we need to give special attention. And I did notice in the chat there that someone has noticed that there was we have made a difference in public drinking and drug use in the Chinatown Park there, and that's what we're going for. We want to have the appearance be that we're not going to tolerate this atmosphere of disorder, because like I said, I do believe it contributes to other more serious things happening. So the 7-Eleven's on my radar. We are going to have officers continue to maintain a presence there. And I would like to reach out to their corporate management and find out if this is something where they may need to hire a permanent security, off-duty security or something there. So there is a more consistent presence, because it is one of our repeat locations and calls for service.
Wonderful. Any other comments from commissioners? And hearing none, let's go ahead to a member of the community who has her hand up, allowing to talk. Is it Thias Austin?
It's Thais Austin.
Yes. Hi, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Lieutenant.
Hello.
I live at 555 Mass Ave since 2006. So I've seen everything ebb and flow in the neighborhood, especially the early years. But I would say that I think our community's at a real critical turning point, because in the last several months, I frankly have felt a bit under siege. I live directly across from Chinatown Park. In our building alone, we have been having to deal with a lot of trespassing. We've had guys hiding in our landscape under the bushes to peek into women's bedrooms. We've had guys lighting crack pipes in the right by our exit doors. We found a woman last week in one of our hallways asleep. And we're a pretty secure building. There are 4 fobbed doors to get to my unit. So people have to be pretty aggressive about trespassing and coming in. And I've had I was outside when we caught the guys hiding. And the MPD officer that responded was great. He finally got them to leave, but they were very belligerent and very empowered. And that's what I'm finding with kind of the new crop of folks that have kind of come into the neighborhood, is they're fearless about what they feel like they can do in the neighborhood to the property and how they interact. And because of that, I no longer will even walk next to Chinatown Park anymore, because I recognize those guys. If you need stay away orders, I have pictures of them, the guys that have been trespassing, but it's clear that they have done it before. They're going to do it again if they're not continually doing it. I've seen crack pipe, the tarp that's in Chinatown Park. I've witnessed crack pipes being lit. I know NPS refuses to do anything about this stuff, but when we live by a homeless shelter, we can't have policies that just allow encampments next to homeless shelters. There should be more rules about public space, not less. They have a place to go to the bathroom. They have a place to charge their phones. They have services they can access. So they're in the parks because they don't want to follow the rules and they want to deal drugs, use drugs, trash the park. And I just feel like it's a much more dangerous neighborhood these days. And things are stemming from the park and things are stemming from the 7-Eleven.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Austin, and I'm very sorry to hear from you, and I've also heard from others this idea of being under siege, and that is something that we cannot stand for. And so when we have dedicated these additional resources up there, it's to target just that sort of behavior. You know, we want to target the drug dealers, but also the general disorder issues, because they both are symptoms and consequences of the other. And you know, when we make arrests up there, we do ask that if it's on private property, that private property management issue barring notices as well. And then we have started requesting through the courts, when we make arrests in the area, of a wide stay away from the whole area, you know, essentially several square blocks. If you don't live in this area, you don't need to be hanging out down there. So we're starting to see those things. We're starting to get more cooperation from the court when we're submitting those requests. But I think, you know, and I hate to keep going back to the pandemic, right? I mean, when do we stop talking about the pandemic? But I think a lot of things happen in the system during the pandemic that we're still seeing the consequences of now. Specifically, the police department was prohibited from making arrests on warrants for misdemeanor offenses. So if you had a pending case in Superior Court and you decided you didn't want to go to court, you know, for your trial, for a hearing, whatever, the judge would issue a warrant, but that warrant was essentially unenforceable. And so what we're seeing now, and we arrested somebody the other day who had 7 pending cases in DC Superior Court, 7 pending cases that were, you know, he was wanted for. And this person was just out there, and we got him because he was urinating in an alley. And now he's back in court to face these charges from 2018 and 2019 that have just been lingering for this long. So I think we need to focus on, you know, that accountability piece, where we need to get out there, we need to use every tool we have, but then we need every other piece of the puzzle to fall into place. We need these cases prosecuted, taken seriously, because they are to you and your neighbors and the business owners that work in your community. You know, I never like to say that one crime is more serious than another, because everybody's perspective is different, right? You know, and I told you the first time we met, I was a homicide detective. And so those cases are extremely important. But in your neighborhood, these are what we need to focus on. This is what the resources need to go to, because unlike areas where there are 20, 30 homicides a year, thankfully, that is not what we're dealing with in your neighborhood, but it's no less serious, the issues that you're facing. So we need the Office of the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney's Office, probation, parole, the courts. We need everybody to come on board and take these issues seriously, so that we don't find ourselves in an environment where we believe that setting up drug markets is okay, and drug markets that result in shootings and somebody dying at 7th and I is on a Thursday night is not acceptable.
Thank you for that. We have one question in the Q&A. When we see illegal activity like drug use, should we be calling 911, or is the text number better if it doesn't rise to something more serious?
I would always suggest that you call 911. That puts it right in the queue for our officers to be dispatched to. Now, if you have more complex issues, so I would say 911 is for stuff that is happening right here and now, and you need a police officer to come and address. If there are more complex issues that we're facing, where you see the same group out there every day and you believe they're doing hand-to-hand transactions or something like that, bring that stuff to me, send me an email, give me a phone call, and then I can have our proactive resources address it from a more comprehensive position. So we've gotten great support from businesses up there, from apartments up there. And I don't want to give away all our tactics, but if we can get in somewhere and look from a vantage point where the bad guys aren't going to see us and observe their activity and move in and make arrests, we've had a lot of success doing that. And so those observation posts, those areas where we can observe build better cases, because we don't want to just get the users. We want to get the guys that are out there setting up shop and dealing the drugs. And that takes observation, that takes longer periods of time. So if you see those things and you know that every day between 12 and 2, there's a guy in a red hat that comes up and he deals on this corner, bring that to me directly so I can farm it out to our units who will be able to spend the time to address that holistically. But if you see something in progress, even if it's a guy peeing in an alley, even if it's somebody drinking a beer in public, call us. Call 911, put it on our radar, put it on the queue, and we will come. Every time we get a call, we will come. That is what we do.
And I guess the crux of this question was, is there a difference between texting 911 versus calling? And do you have a preference, and like, does it make a difference?
So I think maybe what the questioner was referring to was our 50411 anonymous number. That is more for information you're bringing to us, not something we're going to maybe need to respond to right away. It is monitored 24/7 in our command center. So when it does come in, it does get seen, it does get reviewed, but we generally tell people life or death stuff, you need a cop right now, call us rather than texting us, just in case, there's 15 things going on in the command center and they don't happen to look at the text computer, a timely manner, we might miss something. So it's always better just to call 911.
Thank you. And there's another comment in the Q&A. I'm going to make sure that it's live now when you see it. Something about OP locations. That doesn't mean anything to me, but it might mean something to you, Lieutenant.
I missed the question. Let me see.
It's in the Q&A now. So
got it. Yes, ma'am. I will put my I think you have my email. I can put it in the chat also. And I'll put my name, my email and phone number in there, and we can speak.
Okay, and just for your information, Lieutenant, you can't participate in the chat until you've left the panelist realm.
Oh, okay.
So, but once you leave, you can put stuff in the chat.
Got it.
And then Commissioner Rogers, did you have a comment for Lieutenant McHugh?
No, not at this time.
Okay, great. I saw your hand up earlier. I wasn't sure. Okay.
I was testing, see if I'm on,
You're on.
the air.
Okay, welcome. I'm glad you made it. Okay, so if there are no further comments or questions, thank you very much, Lieutenant, and we look forward to working with you. Feel free to drop your contact information in the chat or in the Q&A so that our participants can contact you directly if they see some systematic issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you all for having me. Have a good evening.
Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the 3D report. Do we have anyone from 3D who is on the call here today? Please raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, dial star 9. 3D, area north of New York Avenue.
They said they were going to be here. Oh, no. Here they are.
There we go. Okay, 3D, are you on the phone? Okay, talking permitted. Welcome.
There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, who do we have?
Perfect. Yeah. So I spoke with Commissioner Nigro earlier today. Obviously, we unfortunately had the juvenile kid shot at, was it 1800 block of 7th Street the other night. Right now, that case is still open. We had made contact with that kid earlier on in the evening, and we were on scene within 30 seconds with that case. As far as we've been making some decent arrests in the area. We got a CPWO with a high capacity magazine right there at 11th of Rhode Island, which is very, very close. And then we got a unauthorized use of vehicle right there in 1800 block of 7th Street within the MOC also. We've made approximately about 17 arrests in that area. So our police officers have been out there trying to do their best to curb the crime. And any other questions?
Well, before we turn it over, this is just one incident that you're referring to. Or is there anything else that you'd like to update us on about trends in crime and within the 3D area over the last month? Actually, it's been 2 months since we've had a call, since a meeting. We had August off. So just any other updates?
Yeah, I'm not sure what was said in the last meeting, but the crime's definitely trending down. Our theft of autos in the area has been trending down. Robberies been trending down. Everything's trending down in that area.
Okay. So if no other updates from you, and pardon me, sir, would you mind telling us your name and your rank?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Lieutenant Ross.
Ross, R-O-S-S?
Yes.
Minutes?
You got it.
Okay, so I believe Commissioner Wiggins, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, Lieutenant Ross, thank you for your service. But I do have some concerns. You're saying that the numbers are going down, but it seems like the shootings are going up. I have tenants in the area off of 7th Street who are very concerned about the shootings that are taking place in broad daylight. I'm told there's a shooting that took place last Friday where 7th Street was cut off with police tape. What is going on in the area where people, I mean, one of the tenants told me today that a 14-year-old kid got shot in the head. What is going on with the shootings on 7th Street? What is the source of this problem? What's going on?
Yeah, so that's something we're very concerned about, and that's something we're definitely investigating currently. With that being said, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. With that being said, we are very concerned with that, and that's something that should be happening, and especially in broad daylight.
Yeah. So you don't have any intel on, maybe this may not be the forum for you to release it, but I have to ask, do we have any idea why are these teenagers shooting each other with ghost guns? Are the adults, which I probably think is not, but I'm just gravely concerned because a lot of people have been calling me about, I think I saw a blurb on the news this morning about somebody being shot in Shaw. So that always raises our eyebrows when we see something like that. I think it was one was at 10:30, one was broad daylight. I'm just trying to get some intelligence on what is going on.
Yeah, so this probably isn't a forum where I can release too much information on the intel, but I can tell you this: a lot of it's social media, and that's a huge problem, especially with these younger kids.
So you can state that it's probably teenagers that are shooting at each other with ghost guns. Am I assuming that incorrectly as far as the source of the guns?
You're saying both shooting at each other?
Ghost guns.
Oh, ghost guns is another big issue. And we're getting quite a few recoveries of the ghost guns.
So you're recovering the guns. Are the guns being thrown to the side? Are you making arrests with people being caught with ghost guns?
We are definitely taking arrests when we catch people with the ghost guns.
Have you made an arrest for individuals that were shot last night or last Friday?
No, that case is currently
Still open?
and under investigation.
So these other crimes are decreasing, but the shootings are increasing. Is that what we're saying?
We've had a couple shootings here recently.
Do you think this will decrease because the summer is ending and people are going back to school, or are these individuals who are not even in the school system just ditching school altogether?
Well, and that's the other thing we're pushing quite a bit is picking up curfew violators and truant kids that are not going to school. So we that's been a big force for us that we're really pushing for our officers to do, because it seems like the younger kids are unfortunately either getting shot or doing the shootings.
Do we know what kind of family environment they're coming from?
That's the other thing we have investigate. So when we take them home, we get the parents or whoever is taking care of the kids, and we're making contact with them. We're working with CFSA and things like that to make sure that we try to get these kids help.
So the family environment, well, it can't be that strong if you got 12, 13, 14 years old out shooting somebody. So you are looking at trying to get the parents some help if they need it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Agro, did you have a comment for,
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So the lieutenant from 1D was talking about how they are arresting people for urination and defecation all over the place in 1D. And I would like to see that in 3D, and I've got an alley for you. So, I mean, are you guys kind of taking the initiative with that up here?
We are, yes.
All right. Do you know how many arrests have been done lately with that type of stuff?
If you tell me the alley, I'll make sure to have officers swing by.
Well, more than swing
Which
by.
alley?
So, you know, I don't want to harp on it. I've been asking for a foot patrol forever, but that said, you know, I have certain segments where people use as a toilet in my area. And if you guys can kind of, you know, drive by or foot patrol or bike on or whatever, y'all get there, that would be, and if you're gonna arrest people for that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, our officers, we give them cars to respond to runs and all that, but our officers are encouraged every hour to get out the car and walk a foot beat.
Okay,
Especially what we call hotspot areas.
correct.
Lieutenant, I think you
Yes,
need to
sir.
be apprised of an alley adjacent to the convention center. I've seen video footage of a gang of 10 or 12 young people, look like they range from the age of 12 to 16, hanging out in the alleyway between the convention center where the barbershop is and McCullough Terrace where those apartments are. They don't belong to people who live in those buildings, but they kind of hide out. They no longer go to the in-street park where we could basically see where they were congregating, but now they're starting to hide out in the alleyway. I've even seen video footage where a police officer was on right in front of Capital City School, where Catholic Church is, Immaculate Conception is. They were literally hiding in the alleyway while a police officer was on the street, literally a couple of feet away. But had he just went down the alley, he would have saw a gang of young people and with money flashing, brand new bills being flashed. So there's got to be some type of drugs involved. So I think you need to pay attention to that alleyway. I've seen the video footage. I've actually shown it to one of your officers already, but I haven't heard anything come of it. But I wanted to publicly state that alleyway is having some, it's not every day, but you might want to check it out like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Because I've seen the video footage and it does not look pretty.
Okay. And when you see these gentlemen, please, like Lieutenant McHugh said, please call 911. And like he says, we're gonna come. So, you know, I can't put an officer in that alley 24/7, but
no, don't expect that. But I expect you to be at least be aware. At least be aware that that's a potential problem.
And when you say adjacent, what are we talking about on the east side of 7th Street?
It's on 700 block of N, right across from Immaculate Conception and right adjacent to the barbershop. The video shows 12 to 13 teenage boys just kind of hanging out, and one young man was flashing a handful of brand new bills.
Okay.
So he had to have been a leader of some kind for none of them to even rob him of all that money. But you know, it's not normal to see a teenager with that kind of cash kind of being flaunted.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Thanks for that feedback, Commissioner Wiggins. Let's move on to Commissioner Blackson. Would you care to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Hi, how you doing? My question is, I see someone shared with me that in Prince George's County, they were enforcing a curfew for the teenagers. And I wanted to know, was DC thinking of doing anything about that? I know we have shootings in broad daylight, but also at night. You think it would be better if we could have the teens off the streets after 10 p.m.? Do you think DC is going to have any curfews enforced?
So we do enforce curfews. I believe it's 10 p.m. on weeknights and 12 p.m. on weekends.
Oh, I never knew it was being enforced. I see so many teens in my area all hours of the night, but thank you.
Yeah, remember a lot of these kids, they're older than they look. So, but we definitely are enforcing them. That's a big push for us.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Niger, one more
One
comment.
last question. So is Lieutenant Fleming still with you guys?
He is.
Oh, because he said he would go biking with me up and down the alleys. And I tell him I was still like that. I'm still waiting for that. Again, I want a foot patrol, bike patrol. I don't care how they get around. They need to get out of the car. So please remind him. We were supposed to go together.
I will remember, he's an avid biker. Are you going to be able to keep up?
Me or him?
Well, probably.
Him.
Okay,
No,
any
he's
questions?
currently, I'll definitely let him know.
Do we have any questions from the community for our 3D representative from MPD? Please raise your hand or dial *9 if you're on the phone. We have some questions showing up in the Q&A. Chinatown Metro is full of teens hanging out at night outside the escalator. And then also, are the youth aware of a curfew? There is no, and perhaps there's info that we can be posting at libraries about that.
Okay, so Chinatown, that's going to be
That's 1D.
that's going to be on 1D.
Okay.
Hello? Yeah, I'm sorry.
And the other question was, do the teens know that there's a curfew?
They do, because a lot of times when we try to stop them, they will take off running.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
They're well curfew.
Okay, thank you very much for attending this evening. If there are no other questions from the community or the commissioners, thanks and have a great evening. Be safe out there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6 on the agenda, report from the mayor's office, community office representation. Do we have Jasmine Coylton on the call, or perhaps, there we go. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through fine. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome back, everybody. I just wanted to give a quick update. Hazel is no longer with Moker's office, so I will be serving as the only Ward 6 liaison for the Mokers at this present moment. Again, my name is Jasmine Quilton, if you all don't know. And I did want to clarify the shootings that happened. So the one that took place at the 1700 block of 7th Street, that was a juvenile involved shooting. The one that took place on the 1800 block of 7th Street, which is technically Ward 1, that was an adult. So yeah, one adult, one juvenile. And we did sweep both those areas. We did check in with the daycares. None of the daycares were damaged with any bullet holes. Everybody appeared to be okay. I did want to give an update in regards to the HPAP program. The mayor added funds to that. So the monies that you could receive has increased based off your household size and the income. And when I get off the chat, I would definitely drop that in. When I get off from talking, I would definitely drop that in the chat so you all can have more information about that. Our maternal,
What does HPAP stand for?
Oh, let me get the it's our home purchase assistant program, and that's through DHCD. And I'll drop that information in the chat so people can look it up if they need it as well. We're having our maternal and infant health summit this month on September 15 at 9 a.m. All is welcome. I will also be dropping that information in the chat just in case anybody is interested in attending that. Mokers have been involved in a plethora of things within Ward 6. We've been working with, of course, DMHHS and MPD to clear that encampment near M Street. We are definitely working with our Mount Vernon SID to address the concerns at the 7-Eleven. We are doing consistent patrolling in the area. We have notated some illegal dumping around those areas in which we submitted the 311 request for, and we had DPW come out and clean those up. But yeah, we've been out on Tuesdays and Fridays, of course, conducting, well, not we, I've been out on Tuesdays and Fridays conducting our sweeps. So if you have any questions, or if I do come across something on Twitter, I also flag that to the agencies. But if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to send me an email, jasmine.poylton@dc.gov, and I will definitely address those issues.
Do you have a minute for a few questions, if there are any?
Yes,
Great.
I do.
Any commissioners have questions oh, okay. I think Commissioner Niagara was first.
So
Yes.
Jasmine, quick question, if you have the information. So I know that the Department of Health is starting tomorrow, the 3rd booster shot at
Yes.
the COVID centers, and also doing the flu. But my question is, if my constituents go down to the Ward 2 one, which is in pretty good walking, reasonable walking distance from 6004, is there gonna, do you know how much is gonna be, how many doses? Has that information been released?
That information has not been released to myself, but I could check in with Tomas, who can get me those numbers, and then I'll shoot it back. I'll send him the email or a message now to see if he has that information on hand.
Not that there's going to be like a melee. I mean, I would hope not, but you just don't know. Is it going to be like only like 50 doses, or and then 100 people show up? And I just,
Yeah, I can get that information. I don't know it off the top of my head right now, but I can get that information and give it receive back to you. And I did want to, since we brought up the situation of Ward 2, so Ward 6, a lot of the space in Ward 6 is being redistricted to other wards, and 6E has we share a lot with Ward 2, but because the commissioners have not been updated or they're not changing, we're still working within those wards until January. So if we do see something that says Ward 2, but it's under ANC 6, Ward 6 smokers will still be responding to those areas.
Thanks. And one quick question about about the vaccine information. The website on the DC Health website currently has the vaccination schedule listed from January of 2021. So you may want to make sure that let the mayor's team know that we definitely need some updates to the coronavirusdc.gov vaccine webpage to make sure everyone has the latest information.
Perfect. Thank you for that flag.
Great. And Commissioner Wiggins.
Hey, Jasmine, how you doing?
I'm well, Commissioner. How are you?
I'm doing well. In times past, in years past, whenever there was something that was impactful to our individual ANCs or single member districts, especially when it came to, a midnight shooting or something of that nature, I'm always thinking public safety, so I apologize. But I will get a call from the MOCR, let me know that something transpired at a certain time, so I will be aware of it. Is that something that we can reinstitute?
Yeah, so I actually sent an email to Commissioner Eckler, if I'm saying his last name correctly, because I believe when I searched it up, it said it was under 6E01.
Right, it would have been.
Yes, but if you want me moving forward, I can add all the commissioners to the email instead of the individual one in regards to those notifications about the rapids.
It's just good for us to know, because sometimes constituents reach out to me about these matters that's not even my single member district. But because of my employment, I'm in contact with a lot of different people outside of my single member district, and sometimes I can get blindsided because I don't know anything about it. If I'm busy and I haven't seen the news, then I have to go and start researching on what transpired. And I'd rather have advance notice so I know how to respond to constituents rather than not knowing, then have to go on an information search through the MPD. So yeah, I would. I don't know about other commissioners, but I would appreciate it.
Okay.
I keep boots on the ground quite often.
Yeah, that's no problem.
One thing to note, Jasmine, I actually heard from the Washington Post today before I got your email. So I think there is an opportunity for a little bit quicker turnaround if the shooting did occur, yesterday evening. there might be an opportunity for a quicker turnaround.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any questions from additional commissioners? Seeing none, questions from the community for our mayor's community rep? Please raise your hand or dial *9. There's no one on the phone left, so please raise your hand. Okay, hearing none. Jasmine, thank you very much for coming out this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye. Okay, the next item is Ward 2, Councilmember Pinto's office. Let's see, Brian Romanowski. All right.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Welcome.
All right, well, hey, everyone. I hope the new school year is off to a good start for all the students, families, and staff who started last week and this week. Before the new school year began, Councilmember Pinto and our team toured all of the public schools in Ward 2, and so Seton Elementary School and Banneker High School were among those. We met with the staff to make sure that their buildings and staff were ready to welcome the students back. At Seton, we're working to improve their security, and we're working with DDOT to make sure they have a crossing guard on Rhode Island Avenue like they used to last year. At Banneker, they're in pretty great shape since the building is so new, but we did stress the importance of allowing the community to access the track and field, the 10th Street walkway, and the tennis court. So we're working with the school and with DPR on a plan to get them to give the community access while keeping the campus secure and clean. We also plan to tour the KIPP DC Grow Academy soon. We were supposed to tour that at the same time as the others, but it got rescheduled. So we will hopefully be doing that soon. And I did put in a 311 about the pedestrian crossing sign at their mid-block crosswalk that is missing. And hopefully we can get a raised crosswalk there as well. As folks are going back to school and into their offices and spending more time together inside, Commissioner Nigro already brought this up, but remember that we do have these COVID centers in each ward of the city, and you can get free at-home tests, you can get rapid tests, you can take tests you can also go to the public libraries for these tests. I'm going to post a link in the chat with the locations and the hours. That should be updated. If the other part of the website is not, the COVID center part at least is updated on a daily basis with the hours. And these COVID centers are offering the new COVID booster and the annual flu vaccine starting tomorrow. I also don't know what numbers they have, but our Ward 2 center is on F Street between 9th and 10th Street. They do on the coronavirus website show you like how many masks and tests they have left. So maybe they'll be able to start showing how many, flu vaccines or COVID vaccines they have left. But, there's probably a phone number that you could call on the website. So it's always a good idea just to call before or check social media. They post on Twitter every morning with the hours. So that's usually my best source of information from DC Health. They're also continuing to offer free monkeypox vaccines to eligible residents. They recently expanded the eligibility and they are now offering second dose appointments because it's a 2-dose vaccine. I'll also post a link in the chat to the monkeypox information. One of the vaccine sites for monkeypox is in Ward 2 at 1900 I Street Northwest. But I do want you to note that if you are getting a monkeypox vaccine or received one recently, the CDC is recommending you wait 4 weeks before getting another COVID vaccine. So do check with your doctor or do your research on the timing because I know there's a lot of vaccines happening at once now. So you want to make sure that you're doing it safely. Councilmember Pinto will be hosting her Ward 2 bike ride on the morning of Saturday, October 1st. This was rescheduled from the 100-degree day in May. So we're hoping it will be cooler by October 1st, but it's DC, so you never know. We will post the route and the RSVP link in our newsletter and on social media shortly, but the plan is to start in Shaw as we had planned to do in May. I know there's a lot of interest in parking policies always, so I wanted to be sure to flag for everyone that residential parking, the residential parking rezoning bill that Councilmember Pinto and Henderson proposed will have its hearing on Friday, October 28th. So it's a little ways away still, but Friday, October 28th. I'll post the bill tracker and the bill summary and text with information about how to testify in the chat or in the Q&A. The bill currently would resize residential parking permit zones to align with ANC boundaries, but obviously people have strong feelings about that. So we would love lots of public input during this process, and we want to make sure that, you know, if there are changes that need to be made, that those are made. So again, I'll post all that information in the chat, in the Q&A. The council's legislative recess officially ends next week on the 15th of September, and the next legislative meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 20th. I also want to just mention the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture is hosting a community walk tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in front of the Howard Theater to address ongoing substance abuse and safety concerns there. You know, the gun violence that we saw on 7th Street last night and earlier in the weekend is a reminder that we need to focus on Shaw and especially the 7th Street area. So if you're interested in attending that, it's at 10 a.m. in front of the Howard Theater, and again, hosted by the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture. And finally, I just want to note that the council is switching domain names tomorrow. So we're going from .us to .gov. I'm a little bit worried because, you know, technology changes are, you know, messy sometimes. So just be aware that our email addresses are all switching from .us to .gov, and our websites are as well. So, you know, some of the links that we might share may, you know, if they're council links, they may be switching tomorrow at some point in the morning. So please be patient with us while we go through that change, and please update your contacts for all of the various council emails that you have. Again, that should take effect tomorrow morning. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks so much. Do we have any questions from commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Nigro.
So I'm glad you brought up the firestorm, Brian, called parking, with the residential parking. So you'll be hearing a lot from my constituents with that. So it's going to be, so I will have to do some, I'll have to invite you to like a pre-meeting or something, because it's they're been informed of it, and there has been some of them aren't too happy about that idea. But
Yeah, it's I mean, I think citywide, it's like the third rail of DC.
it's the third rail in my area.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, so I know it's far away, but it's I know people are going to have strong opinions, so I want you to be ready.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, any questions from the community? Feel free to ask a question in the QA box or raise your hand on the phone, *9. There's no one on the phone. And oh, there's Q&A. Let's see. Okay, that's just it's not a question. Okay, so with no other questions or comments, thank you very much for coming out this evening. Very helpful, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you.
Great. Next on to the agenda is Ward 6 Councilmember Allen's office community representative. And I know Jean is here. Welcome, Jean.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Am I here? No.
You're great.
Okay. Definitely, I wanted to echo what Brian said and Rochelle, that everything comes down to parking. I think we all know that. I kind of wanted to highlight a couple of bills. So the legislative session is going to be jam-packed for both our committee and our personal side. We have a bill called Metro for DC, or Metro for All, and we're expecting the Committee on Transportation to mark up and vote on it this month or shortly after. The bill really provides about $100 a month to DC residents, and also makes a major investment in improving bus service in the district. So that's a really something to really look forward to. And then the other bill that's coming up sooner rather than later is the Internet Equity Bill. This is another high priority for Councilmember Allen. We expect it to get a vote in committee this fall, but the bill would require district government to ensure every household has access to high-speed, affordable broadband. We've got a pilot program going now at Potomac Gardens, which is a housing project in Southeast on the Hill. And that has helped many, many households get connected, and really shows us kind of what's possible. I also wanted to mention, I don't know if Kenyatta Robinson from the Mount Vernon Sid is listening. I imagine he is, but I wanted to really talk about what I'm trying to figure out as a model of a Plaza West conversation that's been ongoing for about 6 months now. We really got sort of the MOCR and our office and Kenyatta and the building property managers and the owners of the property, which do have a mission that is social justice oriented, which helps things along a lot better. It diffuses, they're much more collaborative. But it would be really interesting if there are actual problematic buildings to get this group together with an ANC commissioner to be able to move things along. And I really applaud Kenyatta because he came up with this giant tick list after a meeting with many residents and many high-level DC employees to be able to address chronic problems that are going on in the building. And we've really moved things along, and we've also kind of every other week for a long time, we had the residents participate as well. And that was super helpful, obviously, for management to hear from them directly. So I just wanted to put that out there for the ANC commissioners, especially if there are problematic areas that we can help you focus on. That is a model I'm dying to try out. And then the last thing is that many bills are coming related to public safety. One coming sooner than later is an omnibus bill expanding services and rights for victims and survivors of crime, including expanding eligibility for compensation after an incident and expanding violence interruption work in the emergency rooms in DC hospitals. This will be an important expansion to help victims, their families, while also making the district safer as we continue to try to break cycles of violence. And then I think that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Sean. Do we have any questions from commissioners? Ooh, and hearing none, anyone in the community wish to ask a question, please feel free to raise your hand. We do have one in the Q&A, which is, when does CM Allen plan to begin discussion on his criminal code rewrite in the Judiciary Committee? A lot of neighbors are very interested in making comments.
I would take a look at our newsletter. That is definitely coming up this fall as well. We have a very packed agenda, especially on the committee side. And so that's an easy way to stay in touch with what's going on with the criminal code reform. We have a special team that has been working diligently for the last 2 years because it's super dense. And so I'm happy to, if you email me, I'm happy to connect you with the right committee staff person to be able to explain more or to shed some light on exactly what you're interested in.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other comments from the community? And so hearing none, Jean, thank you very much for coming out this evening. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. It's nice to see you guys.
Thanks. Take care. Moving on to item 9, Ward 5 Councilmember McDuffie's office. Do we have a rep from Councilmember McDuffie's office
I
here?
invited Kelly Cisco
Okay, let's see if Kelly's here.
or anyone from Ward 5 to represent the enclave.
And hearing and seeing none.
I'm not happy.
Okay. So
That's
we
interesting.
can now move on to item 10, which is presentation from MPD Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Liaison Unit. And this is in reference to a recent event that also happened here up on the border of 6001 and 6002. Let me promote Desiree Walker to panelist to address the group. Greetings. Hello, Officer Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Desiree Walker, actually.
Desiree.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Just to give you a brief understanding of our unit, we're actually 20 years plus been MPD for LGBT, and we're under our special liaison branch. We're a full-time staffed unit with affiliate officers throughout the city. And we're not just LGBT, we actually have 4 other units, the Latino, deaf and hard of hearing, and Asian liaison, to include interfaith. And so all of our units work with assisting district officers and detectives when it comes to hate crimes and hate bias related incidents.
Okay, we were thinking there might be a presentation from your office. Do you have anything else that you want to share with us in general about your about the group?
So as I said, we work with all the districts. We're a citywide unit. So when there are cases, whether it be so we go by districts, District 1 or District 7, we assist them in working with the community close hand. So we work with the mayor's LGBT office, as well as community partners such as like Wanda Alston Foundation, Whitman Walker, and things of that nature. So it's a very, very broad collaborative effort to assist victims and people who are in need or distressed within those communities.
Great, and your invitation to come to address our meeting here this evening was due to a presumed an attack of 2 gay men on 7th Street Northwest, 1700 block, a handful of weeks ago that involved slurs, including involved some slurs that made it seem like it was a bias-based attack. Do you have any comments for us on that case, or more generally, whether there are trends that you can speak to about bias-based attacks here in the district and within Shaw specifically?
Well, in reference to that one incident in particular, we are aware and have been working with not just the victims, but the officers as well in reference to that case. But in addition to, what we do tend to see also from bias-related events is that they generally are around, say, major holidays, special events. As you all know, June is a very busy time for us, not just June, but May and July as well, because we have Pride Month. And so generally speaking, when we have holidays and or special events, we do see a lot more activity within and from the exterior part of the community. And so it is good and bad on both ends. And so we're there to make sure that we can assist with that. We have a lot of partner organizations who are assisting the community through those incidents. And I'm familiar with the one on 7th Street, as well as others that have been in the news. And so we want to make sure that the victims and people who are in need know that there are resources beyond MPD, but in addition to MPD assisting and trying to close these cases.
Thanks for that. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Okay, and hearing none, do we have any comments or questions from the community? Please feel free to raise your hand or ask a question in the Q&A. Okay, and hearing none, thank you very much for coming out and joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Be safe.
You too.
Okay, moving on to item 11, which is unfortunately, we do not have a representation from DC Walker this evening, or sorry, DC Water this evening. So we will have to move past that item. Let me see. Some things are going on over here. It's a little weird. I think there was just a software update on Zoom and things were not normal. There we go. Okay, so then moving on to item 12, presentation by DDOT and request for support for NOI 22224, two-way protected bike lane on 9th Street Northwest. So we have our DDOT representation here this evening. Let's see, maybe Mike or George.
I sent it to Mike.
Who's Mike? And there's George. Greetings.
I think we're running a bit ahead. George actually put together the presentation and he was going to give it. So let me see, I just pinged him and I think he Yeah, he should be joining in just a second. Sorry
Yeah,
about
we are running a little hot. We had a last. minute
Yeah.
That's
cancellation.
okay. Hi, sorry. I
Oh, you're here.
sort away and because I thought we didn't realize we were this far along, but that's great. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Good to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, let me get my camera going here. All right. Let me get my, sorry. Blur my background. I guess I can't blur it. All right, whatever. All right. Let me pull up the presentation and walk through that quickly. Let me see here. All right, is this showing through? Is everybody able to see the slides?
Don't see anything yet.
Not yet, George.
Okay, hang on. Oh, display settings, maybe. That's not what I needed. I don't know what I need to do here. 10.
Okay, on our end, everything looks fine. Our panelists are allowed to share their screen.
Okay. Soon as I hit present. Oh my gosh, what is it doing? It's trying to translate what I'm saying. I totally messed it up.
There was a recent software update. This could be a glitch.
Wow. Okay, is there a way to just back out of this and okay, end slideshow. All right, let me go back to the screen with you all. Okay. Share screen. Let me try that. And then do that. And then hit that.
There we go. Something's going on.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
All right.
Now we're seeing the presenter mode where we get the
Right.
slide, the next slide, the timing. So yeah, flip that.
Is that
There.
better? All right. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm going to be using, you're the first ANC that we're coming to for this final round of presentations during the NOI period. So I put together sort of a final plans presentation. So it's not labeled for any particular ANC, and I have the entire corridor on here, which is not necessary, I don't think, because you don't cover the whole corridor, and we have 4 ANCs for the whole corridor. So I'll just go quickly through here, and the slides here was our whole justification earlier on to explain why we're building protected bike lanes and what protected bike lanes look like. And I did redo this, this slide here about the sustainable DC objective that we're trying to meet. And it's one of the significant reasons that we're trying to increase the number of protected bike lanes, which is to try to get closer to the 75% of all trips in the city to be taken by walking, biking, or transit. Right now, it's around 50% when you put all of those together. We're around 13% walking, 4% by bike, 4 to 5, depending on the year you look at from the census data, 33 to 35 by transit, and then 38% drive alone right now, at least to work. And then the remainder is carpool and taxi, et cetera. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to repurpose parts of the roadway, whether it be parking lanes or travel lanes, to be protected bike lanes in particular, so that we can get people with low stress tolerance on the left there. That's what we're shooting for. Some of us are highly confident riders and may take a route that doesn't have any bike facility at all, or a standard bike lane, but there's only a small percentage of people who will come out and bike in those conditions. And we're trying to get, towards the end of the spectrum of people who are interested but concerned, and will bike much more if we create more secure and safe facilities for them to ride in. There's a lot of project history, a lot of the matrix on the various corridors that were looked at in the Eastern Downtown study. And if anyone wants more information on that, we can happy to provide that. But we went into that in depth in previous meetings. So I'll move right now to the segment north of Mass Ave to just refresh people's memory of what the existing configuration is from this sort of bird's eye view. On the left, we have the 4 lanes with parking on each side, 2 lanes in each direction, and parking on each side. And on the right is the proposed configuration. Basically, there are a lot of variations in this in the actual plans, but this is the basic idea: is that the curb on the east side of the street, the curb lane becomes a 2-way protected bike lane. There will be flex posts and concrete wheel stops and other concrete separators in between the bike lane and the parking lane or the travel lane. And then there's a parking lane where the one of the 2 northbound lanes used to be. That is the reason we came to this conclusion, is that we did have less traffic going northbound on this corridor than southbound. And that traffic can be handled in 1 lane as opposed to needing 2. And the collateral benefit of that is that it reduces speeding, because when you only have 1 lane, you roughly have to go the speed of the car in front of you. So there is a traffic calming benefit to this type of reconfiguration. Road diets like Maryland Avenue have produced that a very beneficial effect by doing that. So it's also a safety intervention for at least the northbound lanes. South of Mass Ave, in the one-way section right now, there are 3 lanes. Ignore that this is a bus only lane that's been removed. So it's 3 travel lanes and parking on each side. In the proposed configuration, again, the bike lane is on the east side of the street. It's buffered from the parking, and then there are places where the parking ends a little early, and there's a left turn pocket. And then there's 2 travel lanes during off-peak periods. And then the west side of the street, which now has permanent or 24/7 parking, will have rush restricted parking in order to keep the traffic operations at an acceptable level of delay. So that is the configuration south. I'll turn now to, I guess, the segment. You basically, ANC 6E runs from roughly the convention center north to which street? I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. If someone can.
Yeah, it's from O to S.
O to S. Okay. All right. So we'll just start. So just north of Mount Vernon Place, we come up the street with the protected bike lane, which is buffered, and then we get to the convention center, to M to N, and that is where there are 2 streeters. And I know there were some questions about that. In fact, I have, I think that was a question that came up in the discussion with the Transportation Committee last week. But they were asking if we were able to keep those streeteries, and also how the bike lane will be routed around them. And so you can see there in the lower segment how the unconventional diner and tall boy streeteries remain. The bike lane just detours around them, and there will be concrete wheel stops and flex posts between the northbound travel lane and the protected bike lane. There is a little bit of Pudo area right at the north end of that block to try to handle some of the fairly active pickup and drop off activity that happens in that segment. From N Oh, this was, sorry, I put this in just to remind people sort of how it looks if you're having trouble looking at plan sheets, which are not everyone is familiar with. But this shows, the parking on one side, which is essentially the same as it is today, and then the bike lane on the other side. The N to P block was originally not to have any parking, but we are able to keep it because we are removing the P Street left turn pocket. So, all right, if on the upper segment of this slide, it's between O and P, there will be no left turns allowed at southbound onto P Street. It'll be prohibited, but we have a left turn pocket for O. And this will hopefully take the demand for those lefts that are happening at O or at P. The left turns at P were relatively low, like no more than 20 in a peak hour. And what it does allow is us to have a little bit of parking now in this block from O to P where there wasn't any before. So we do have a bit of parking there, only about 2 or 3 or probably 3 spots here, but that's a little bit of an improvement on the parking count because of that reconfiguration. Then we move up to Q Street, saving the Zeppelin Streetery there. It's on the opposite side, so we're not really impacted at all on the west side. We are introducing a left turn pocket for southbound to turn onto eastbound Q, and then 2 through lanes that made up with the 2 through lanes in the rest of the block. Rhode Island Avenue.
George, before you move on,
Yes.
Can you address the P and 9th bus stop, the southbound bus stop?
Yeah, so this is Shiloh on the northwest quadrant. The bus stop, I believe, looking at aerial photos that are recent, I believe that it's already been moved, but the parking hasn't been changed. So thank you. There will be a bus stop in this location, moving from this location, from north of P Street to just the far side south of P Street. So there will be a bus stop. The bus stop that is now north of P Street in front of Shiloh Church will be moved to just south of there. And the parking, I think it may have already, according to the Google, sort of the GIS layer for the bus stops, it's already showing it there, but I know the parking regs have not changed. So, so that will be restricted parking. And this shows it with the darker lines where it says 7, which is the width of the parking lane. And it doesn't start until halfway down the block. So yeah, that bus stop will be moved. In addition, we are adding in front of Shiloh's entrance on P Street, we are adding a pickup drop-off zone. There'll be no parking, pickup and drop-off only, to address some concerns they had about being able to drop off people in front of the church. Were there any other questions on this slide?
No, let's keep going.
All right. So moving north from Mass Ave. Oh, sorry. This was just to show, again, if there's anyone here from the church communities, this shows in the outline, sort of underneath the parallel parking, the diagonal parking that will remain exactly where it is today and has been in front of Shiloh and on up the street. In fact, these are the blocks here that actually are New Bethel's parking, which has been moved from the east side of the street to the west side, but it is with the exception, I think it's maybe one space short. It's like 51 instead of 52 spaces for New Bethel. But the parking for Shiloh does not change at all. The parking for New Bethel is almost exactly the same number, but it's just on the other side of the street. Then we get to R, and we are doing some, it's a little bit faint, but there are some hatching and sort of flex post curb extensions that we're installing on these corners to address some concerns that were had at the at previous meetings about, and also with the French Street Community Association about driver behavior at some of these corners. So we're doing some flex post curb extensions here to calm those turns, keep them as slow as possible. Now moving up on these blocks from French to Westminster, we took the idea back that some folks that we met with from French Street Civic Association had, which was to add some crosswalks here. And we worked with our engineering team, and we were not able to add them because they would create an uncontrolled marked crosswalk. The distance between these two adjacent signals is so close that adding a traffic signal or a hawk signal would be very difficult to progress, to time properly. And so we did not, the safety engineers came back to our request and said that adding uncontrolled marked crosswalks would not be the safest situation. Again, it would be, we would create what's called a multiple threat on the 2-lane section. That's where one car might stop for the pedestrian, but another car doesn't. And the person walks out and is struck by a car. That is a crash that can happen on multiple lane approaches towards uncontrolled, unsignalized crosswalks. It's better on the northbound direction, but it also, we would have to prohibit parking at the top of the T here in between the crosswalks where they land. So it has also a parking take cost. But what we've decided to do, and I'm talking about both Westminster and French, is we will, after about 6 months after full completion, we will monitor, we will actually start a traffic safety investigation to take a look at what we could do at these crosswalks, and whether there might be a possibility for a rapid flashing beacon or some other kind of intervention to create some crosswalks here. And we're going to, I think, also just see what the traffic behavior is like. We believe that the behavior will get better. Certainly the northbound direction is now substantially reduced travel lane situation. We think it will have a fairly substantial impact on driver behavior, and that the road will have a significantly different feel to it. And this was a concern of the French Street Civic Association, that traffic calming was needed, and they wanted the crosswalks to calm traffic, and theoretically it can do that. But we want to see how this street performs in terms of driver behavior and speeds and speeding before we go ahead and put these in. So that's the plan, is to investigate these after about 6 months after full completion, to see if it would be possible to add crosswalks safely to these two intersections, these two T intersections at French and Westminster. Finally, on this slide, it ends at T, and T, of course, is where this upper block from TDU has already been built. We will now have one lane rolling into one lane north of T, which it doesn't now. You have to segue into one lane to pick up into the new configuration. So it's good that this project is moving forward a bit sooner than we thought, because that lane merge south of T is not the best situation. It's much better to have a continuous one lane. Everything flows just better that way. So this will keep that period of time where you have to merge into one lane to be much shorter than we thought, with construction perhaps taking place next year. I did have the notes from our previous meeting, and one of the things that was pointed out was the at P Street. One of the benefits of not having this left turn lane is that we now are able to keep this zone here in front of the Shiloh daycare child development center right in front of it, so that it can be the pickup drop off zone. And those, we've met with our engineers last week, and they are going to change the signage. They did not have the right signage there in the plans, and so that's going to be a change made. This will be a pickup drop off for the child development center that Shiloh operates, and so that's actually works out better than having it pushed further north where it wasn't even in front of the center, the child development center. One question was asked, Karthik asked if why we weren't continuing south to Constitution. we think that Pennsylvania is a more logical terminus. It connects with the two-way protected bike lane and down the center of Pennsylvania Avenue. It's also a lot trickier based with traffic volumes to fit it between Penn and Constitution. So it's a tougher nut to crack in terms of traffic operations. It also goes right into the tunnel. So may not be the safest place to end it. So that is the answer to that question. Alex Lopez asked about an unconventional diner in Tallboy, and we addressed that. We did have a Jonathan Murphy voice support of the ban on the southbound left at P. Often there are high-speed left turns there, so that's good. That we have good for that question. We are going to eliminate that left turn and handle those lefts at O. There's a question to get more space for the two-stage Q turn box. We talked to our engineers about that, and they will look at that, see if we can sort of move things around and get a little bit bigger left turn Q box. A question was asked about the left turn pockets that are throughout the entire corridor, which don't exist today. And will they be protected? And yes, they will be. We do not allow left turns across a two-way protected bike lane without the phased control, so that the peds and bikes go and the lefts are held, and then the lefts go after the ped and bike phase. So that will be the case for all left turn pockets. So that concludes my presentation and addressing some of the questions that were asked at the Transportation Committee. I'm happy to take questions at this point.
Thank you for your presentation. Please keep the screen share up, because there may be some questions about specific intersections as we move on. One question I had was, what is the timing now for the build? You said that you were thinking that it was going to be earlier than the original plan.
Yeah, there's so the division, our team designs and builds some of the bike lanes, but some of the larger projects like this one are being built by our traffic engineering and safety division. And they have other projects that they're also building. They're building all the bus priority projects, which there are many. And there is a bit of sort of scheduling sort of variability that they have, where they are able to move projects forward. Sometimes projects finish a little bit faster than they thought. Some projects hit roadblocks and are delayed. And so what I thought, I didn't want to overpromise to the community, to any of the ANCs. And so I've been sort of talking with our traffic engineering and safety division people, and they were saying, we're not sure. It will be FY23, but probably not in the fall because there's not that much time. Let's shoot for the spring. So I've been saying spring of FY23, which is spring of 23 calendar year. Well, it turns out they are finishing the Park and Warder protected bike lanes, which they're also building. They're finishing those up this month, and they actually are in a position to begin construction on this in October, early October. And so which is a good thing that we're able to start earlier than we thought, but it did mean that we had to get that NOI out and get out to the communities and take questions and inform the community properly and take comments about this project. So that is the plan. On or about the beginning of October 1st is the schedule, from what we've heard from the latest from that division. It is possible it will be partially, I think it's quite likely, given the scope, the size of this project, that it will be not fully complete by the time we have to stop work in late November or early December, depending on the weather. And then it will be finished when the weather breaks probably in March. So just to let people know that's a possibility, given the size of this corridor project.
And so to follow up on that, how will you leave the half-built bike lane over the winter? Is it north side versus south, or was it like the lane will be marked, but maybe the wheel stops won't be put in place? Or like, how's the work going to break across the season?
That's an excellent question. And in fact, I'm not sure of the answer on that. We are going to be meeting with our colleagues in that division who will be sort of scoping out the sequence of construction. We don't know whether maybe it will do one half of the whole corridor because they are kind of two separate entities in terms of the one-way versus the two-way, and maybe do half and then finish the other half. So we will give you all that information as soon as we know it, but it has not been conveyed to us exactly what the sequence will be on that construction plan.
Great, and thanks for that. And I see that Mike is responding to questions in the Q&A, so thank you for being attentive to that. Do we have any comments or questions from the commissioners? And because we've got the screen sharing, I can't see if you're like nodding.
Happy to ask one there, Michael.
Yeah, go for it.
So hey guys from DDOT, thanks for coming over. Commissioner Parlay here. I represent 6005, which is Mount Vernon Triangle. So my sort of recent lived experience with a bike lane is the one on K Street. I just want to say, with respect to this project, at the end of the day, bike lanes provide a lot of growing pains. That's certainly something we've experienced in our neighborhood, is people getting used to it and some tweaks that need to be made sort of along the way, and with respect to things like enforcement. But at the end of the day, like from an environmental standpoint, this is where we need to go. My comment here is, you've got some PUDO zones here, and I think PUDO zones are a major feature of the bike lane on K Street, especially the 400 block. And my comment is, as I understand it, PUDO zones as a policy have not been finalized. I think there's still technically a pilot. And I think, frankly, that is a little bit disruptive. I think for PUDOs to work, I think it's an idea that we can all agree makes a lot of sense, but it's like a child of the pandemic. They're not very well marked. I think it's hard for people to understand what they really mean because it says no parking. The signs are marked no parking, but in reality, I think we want to allow people to park their car so they can jump out for 5 minutes to grab their food, from whatever restaurant. And so I probably, you guys, it's not your team that works on PUDO zones, but to the extent that you can take feedback back, I think it seems like DDOT really likes to do PUDO zones a lot. I see them in a lot of presentations. I see them referenced in a lot of DDOT stuff. I think, please, finalize the project, make it clear what they are, give them a sign, maybe paint the PUDO a different color, just to make it clear exactly what it is that you're trying to do. And I think that'll be really helpful for residents and business owners, just from a traffic safety perspective. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that comment. I have talked to the Parking and Ground Transportation Division manager about that, and they've done some data collection studies, and they are also aware of some of the problems, but also that it has actually worked pretty well based on the data collection. But I agree there is some confusion, and so we are certainly happy to sort of give our input and convey your comments to that team as they look at going from the pilot to a permanent version of that, of that type of pickup and drop off zone.
And I'll just follow up that I've received constituent complaints about the 1900 block of 9th Street already, which is not part of this project scope because it's already been built as part of the 9th and U reconstruction project. But I heard from 2 people at least that driving north on that block between T and U of 9th, they've got cars kind of cutting through and crossing the double yellow on there. So I think it is really important from a safety perspective to make sure that we accommodate the people who need to do pickup and drop off, and that we do enforcement of not blocking the single lane that's northbound when someone runs in across the bike lane to like pick up food from a restaurant or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough spot because people are so intent on parking as close as possible to the place they need to grab something. Because one of the things we've seen on First Street down in the Navy Yard near our offices, where we put in a protected bike lane, kept 2 southbound lanes against a parking lane. is that drivers are behaving exactly the same way they did before the bike lane was there, except now they're not parking in half the bike lane and half the travel lane. They're parking completely, stopping and leaving their car for 10 minutes in one of the southbound travel lanes. So, and the ANC commissioners there are well aware, have tried to get MPD to come and enforce on it, but it's just there's a row of fast casual restaurants there, and everyone is picking up. So at least the bike lane now is not blocked. So in that we made a small improvement, but yeah, but people will. It's kind of remarkable that the notion sort of in the traffic engineering community is that if you only have one lane, there's so much back pressure that you're not going to stop. Well, apparently people will anyway. So I agree we need to pay attention to that and watch the operations to make sure they're as safe as possible. I believe there are 2 PUDO zones that were put in as part of that last block. And I don't know if it's that people don't realize they can park there because of the way the signage is, or confusion, or if it's filled up and then someone parks. That I'd be curious what sort of more to learn more about how the operations are going. We can follow up on that.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Nigro.
I just want to say that this is all very good, and we've been waiting a very long time for this. So I'm finally, I'm almost like in shock that finally something's going to happen. So congrats to DDOT.
Thank you.
And the community. So,
And
and I hope it goes well, because if it doesn't, we're going to hear about it.
we have 2 questions from the community also. Mr. Alan Fields?
Yeah, Michael, before we move on, can I just say that?
Oh, sorry. I didn't see your hand up. Sorry.
Sorry, hand up. Really quickly, I just wanted to reiterate what I said at the Transportation Committee the other week. I really appreciate DDOT's long-term community engagement around this project. It's obviously been a project that's had a lot of sensitivities, and I believe that DDOT has gone out of its way, probably more than any other project we've seen in my memory, to proactively reach out to the community, to the ANCs, to local civic associations, to business associations. So I think that that is really important to get buy-in to this type of really significant project that is going to be transformational, I believe, for our neighborhood. The other thing is I definitely want to echo Commissioner Parlay's sentiment that bike lanes, when they're constructed, that's kind of stage 1. We need to continue to stay engaged. The ANC will need to continue to stay engaged with DDOT and vice versa to make sure that the operational issues are working correctly. Obviously, as we've seen this in K Street, you can't predict driver behavior from an engineering standpoint, but through the operation of the K Street bike lane, we've been able to identify ways to improve the way that bike lane works. Things like moving an additional bus platform to in front of the 7-Eleven. So I expect that once this huge project goes in, there will be some bumps along the way, but look forward to a good working relationship with DDOT to get those ironed out.
Thanks for that comment. Any additional comments from commissioners? And then actually, George, would you bring your screen down, because we are, we can always put it back up if we have specific questions.
Sure.
So let me go ahead and bring Alan Fields for a comment. Okay, allowed to talk. Alan Fields.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. This may not be applicable for the 9th Street, but it's very definitely applicable for 5th Street bike lane. Previously, before the bike lane, if you were handicapped, you can be on the sidewalk. Bus will come along, lower the gate, and you can get in safely. Now you have to actively get into the bike lane to get to the bus, the front lung. And if you're not at the bus stop, you have to go back 2 to 3 bus lengths, go to the corner, go down the corner cut, and then go into a bike lane for 2 to 3 bus lengths to get back to the bus to the front. Is this ADA compliant?
Yeah, we've not designed any bike lanes to operate that way in a where there's a bus stop. We have bus platforms, either
That's what I'm
modular.
I understand. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You've got a bus
yeah,
platform. You have somebody who has to go. You have a handicapped person who has to go from the sidewalk into an active bus platform, which is an active bike lane.
yes, and that is by design, and bicyclists come along less frequently and at certainly much less speed than motor vehicles. The bus rider should.
Whoa. Before they can get on a bus without having to worry about passing cars. They were on the sidewalk.
Right.
The bus came. Nobody can pass them. It was safe. They now have to get into an active bike lane to get into the front door.
They do have to cross the bike lane. Yes.
That's correct. And that's ADA compliant.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. And then Jean is back. Bring you forward. Jean.
I just want to say, George, I feel like your intimate knowledge of the businesses, the churches, and the neighborhood, I really want to commend you on that. It's really, really great to see that from DDOT and that kind of micro level. So thank you. I have a question, and I may sound a little silly, but you know the metal divider near the convention center across 9th Street? Can you speak to that in terms of if there are any accommodations? I know several constituents that have had pretty serious accidents right there. And then the second question really quickly is, I remember being on a walk near the convention center with a ton of DDOT people, including engineers and all kinds of folks, experts, that it was a high, for bicyclists in particular, it was one of those places that was one of the most dangerous intersections. And we talked about doing a PUDO on the metro side of 9th Street there. So I just wondered where that idea went. It sounds like from your presentation tonight that it's going on the opposite side of the street. But I remember when we were there, there were probably like 13 Uber drivers that pulled over in the middle of the block. So I was just curious about that.
I'm sorry, Gene, which location on 9th for the PUDO? That
isn't it right by the convention center? And I may be mixing up.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right, I know there's a loading zone on the west side, but on the east side, so it's not near the, I wonder if it was
a big meeting.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been on the other side around 7th Street, but yeah, we just, with the streeteries being preserved there between M and N, we don't have any other room for any other, drop-off zone, except we did squeeze it in on the north side there. The trouble with moving things around is that streeteries are required to be roughly in front of the business.
Fair enough.
And if we start to push it, if we try to put a south side PUDOs on the unconventional diners streetery, would be pushed really far north, and that's the wait staff hate that, and it's not even supposed to be part of the permit. It's one of the permit requirements. So yeah, I think that's what happened with that. To your other question, and a very good one, about the seam for the underground parking vault of the convention center. We mentioned that because it was not something our engineers had picked up. I think we had brought it up before, but there needs to be a better flange filler in the upper section. So it's actually the problematic part of it becomes much smaller with the protected bike lane. Right now, there's the seam runs, laterally. The seam runs essentially horizontally with 9th Street, all the way from almost to L on the west side of the street, in between the two lanes. It runs all the way up. It has a couple lateral segments that go towards the convention center, and then it does this diagonal back over to right up in front of Tallboy. And that's the place where the bike lane will cross it. So instead of now having to try to figure out how to fill it, do a better flange filler or some type of filler with our street engineers, we can do it, we can figure out how to do it right in that one spot where the bike lane is. Because we're going to assume that people are going to be using the bike lane if they're biking. And so, but it is at a real bias to the bike lane at that point. It runs right under Tall Boys Streetery right now. And that's where the bike lane will be. So yes, we are aware of it. We understand there, we got a communication from I think from the our community, our communities, what is it, the take the 311 request. I think it came in as a 311 service request that someone had crashed and been injured because of that flange gap. And so we are aware of it, and we'll be working on on some type of solution for it where the bike lane crosses it. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks. And we now have a comment from John. Allowing John to talk. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're coming through fine, thanks.
Okay, perfect. I just want to say thanks, George, for this presentation. Like, I think the bike lane looks great. I didn't really have a comment on the 19th or the 9th Street bike lane that you're proposing, but I just did want to comment that I feel like there isn't a lot of really good infrastructure for east-west bike travel as much as there is for north-south bike travel. So just kind of thinking about that for planning purposes, I guess, going into the future. Just wanted to make that comment to you guys. And that's it.
And I'll just note for John, WABA does currently have a petition circulating where people can, sign on for wanting stronger east-west connections, looking at Q and R streets. So you can feel free to follow up with them and get on their email list.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Okay, so any other comments from the community or commissioners? Last call. 9th Street protected bike lane notice of intent 22-224. Commissioner Lopez, would you care to make a motion?
Yeah, so George and Mike summarized pretty well the discussion that we had at the Transportation Advisory Committee a week ago today. There was general support with just a couple clarifying questions. And with that, I want to make a motion that ANC 6E support the proposed protected bike lane on 9th Street between Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest and Florida Avenue Northwest, and communicate that support to DDOT.
Thank you for that. Do I have a second?
I second.
And seconded by Commissioner Nigro. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, it was a unanimous vote from the full commission. Thank you very much for your presentation, George and Mike, and for all of your hard work on this project. I know that I've had you come and give meetings to specific neighborhood communities and process a lot of feedback. And so you've done a really great job of getting this. And I'm very excited to hear that it's happening sooner than later. So I'd love to hear what a half-built bike lane looks like and how it will live over the summer.
We will let you know as soon as we know.
Yeah, sounds
We're on the edge of our seat on that question as well.
Sounds good. Looking forward to working with you as this gets all wrapped up. Okay,
Great.
Thanks again. And we'll move on to the next item. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is a presentation from Walmart about renovation at the 55 H Street store. Do we have our Walmart representative here with us this evening? If so, could you please raise your hand? We can promote you to a presenter. Commissioner Niger, do you recall who from Walmart I should be looking for here?
Hold on one second. I think it's John. Well, he should be raising his hand. Oh, I hope he shows up because we're going to talk about those driverless cars. Oh. Anyone from Walmart on? He said he was coming. Maybe not.
And we're, well, if
Yep, that's too bad.
have anyone from Walmart, then we're just in time, perfectly in time for item 14, but we'll give the Walmart rep another minute
Yep.
before we flip over, and then heads up, item 14, 7-Eleven concerns about 504 K Street. If your 7-Eleven rep is here, please be prepared to raise your hand so we can make you a panelist.
Well, that's Jim.
Jim Evans.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm ready to promote Jim Evans when we're ready to move on to the next item. So last call from a rep from Walmart to discuss the 55 H Street Northwest store. And
too bad.
Seeing none, let's move on to next item 14. From 7-Eleven, I'll promote. Oh,
I'm calling John Boyd now. I can remember his last name.
and in the meantime, we will be moving on to item 14. Jim Evans, welcome. Hello, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
You coming through just fine. Thank you for coming out to the ANC 6E meeting tonight.
Great. Thank you for having me. Apologize, it's a little bit dark here. We're between stores here out in the field, but still want you to be able to see who you're speaking with to the best of the ability. So I've met most of the group when we first opened this store a couple of years ago, and I'm excited to be back in the area. As I've shared with Rochelle, I'll be back responsible for the K Street store, actually effective about 6 weeks ago. So I'm the regional director of operations for corporate operations for 7-Eleven for the Northeast. Oversee about 900 stores here in the Northeast. I have my boss, Alex Kelly, who is the zone vice president of operations for all of the East Coast. With me as well as a representative from the asset protection team, Mike Elves, on the call. So if there's questions relating to asset protection, just want to make sure everyone here understands we're taking this, very seriously, on the call here today. So I understand the concerns that Kenyatta and Rochelle, as well as the community, have brought forward to me regarding cleanliness of the store, regarding the operations of the store, as well as, I think first and foremost, the security of the team, as well as the community, shopping this store. So, we hear you, we understand, and we are committed to, getting this right. I know we've discussed in the past a couple of things that we'd like to try to help improve security. So for number one, to help us with security for our team and our customers today, we have enacted 24/7 security, which you can see at the location. We tried to enact this a couple of weeks ago, but it took a little bit of time to, get the proper coverage that we needed. But we have enacted that for now as we look for other measures. We've proposed, and I know that Patrick, I've received your feedback on this device, but the music device that we have, we proposed that during the day, understanding the concerns of the community during the night hours, that it was too disruptive for many members of the community, but we've proposed that just to the day to help curtail some of the folks that are gathering in front of the store. This is a device that does work for us in other urban areas, that I know there's a lot of questions about how does it work playing opera music? Why does it work? The science works. We have some facts with our partnership with law enforcement that when it was playing, it actually helped curtail, many of the incidents. But we have that. I can show you another device that we're looking into installing to help us with better camera footage. So folks know that if they're hanging around our store, they're going to be very visibly on camera, and knowing that that is a method of deterrent to keep folks from wanting to see their face, especially if they're wanted. on camera quite frequently. That would be another suggestion, as well as, like I said, we have for now went with 24/7 security, but sustainably, it's not something that is really affordable, from a long-term perspective of, having this type of security, in the store. So we're looking for help in different avenues to try and help this. So I know I just said a lot. I don't know if there's questions on that or if you'd like me to continue.
I think now would be a fine time to take some questions from commissioners and the community. Do we have questions here from commissioners?
Michelle, you've been chatting, you've been sort of leading the way on this. Do you want to?
Thank you, Patrick. Yes. So for those of you who, follow me on social media, I go to the 7-Eleven a lot. So I don't think the 7-Eleven expected that an influential commissioner would go to their corporate owned store about 4 times a week. So I do have a lot of comments, and I thank Jim and his team for, for joining this meeting and for implementing the much needed security for those people on the call who have been to that 7-Eleven. It's a great place. There's the tacos and ice cream and iced coffee. It's fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love the app. I get some free coffee because of the app. It's great. But that said, no customer, especially there are senior citizens in Kevin's area. In Kevin's area, there are senior citizens that go to that store, and no one should be afraid to walk in the front door. And then once they walk in the front door, it can be mayhem. So that's not an exaggeration, folks. I am not making this up. And mayhem, I am at that store at usually 6:50 in the morning, 4 times a week. And when I say there's mayhem at 6:50 in the morning, it is mayhem. And that is completely unacceptable for a corporate owned store. Now, we can talk about the outside. We have no loitering laws. That's a whole nother discussion. But what's inside happens, that is 7-Eleven's responsibility. And no senior, no constituent of mine, my constituents go there, should feel like I can't go in there because something's going to happen inside. People holding court with the door. I mean, I don't have to tell Jim, this is, but I want to thank you for the effort that they have put out in the past several weeks, because it's a great improvement. So keep it up.
Thank you. And thank you for being a proponent of our business and supporting us since we opened. I do recall you being at the grand opening. You've stuck with us throughout this. So I'm, very happy with that. We are trying to do our best to make sure we're keeping folks safe inside the store. And, Metro Police have been also very responsive when called to help prevent those issues. But as you can see, there is a lot going outside, and but we do have security there now, but we really are looking for help. I know there was cold shoulders to the music. It really is something that works. If we don't want to play it at night, we're not looking to make the whole block a disruptive service or anything like that, but playing music just in front of our stores, where we've enacted this in similar environments, it's helped us immensely. So I would just really ask for some help with that, because I think if we can control what's in front of the store, it would help us control what comes in the store as well.
So I want to say it's unfortunate there are the people that live across the street that Patrick and I are familiar with who do comment about any noise that happens in the community, and they did not get back to you. So I think maybe Patrick and I can discuss with those people directly to talk to you, because I don't, Patrick has a different opinion. I think the music might work, but I want success for that store because it's nice. It's a nice store.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a few comments here as well. So the music, that's just to fill the kind of the community and some of the commissioners in. So there was a time, I think it was in 2021 or 2020, probably 2021, where the 7-Eleven was enacting this kind of music idea, and it was essentially playing opera music 24/7, I think, with an eye toward deterring loitering, basically. So this happened for a period, but then we sort of, and this was kind of Rochelle institutional knowledge, we came across a voluntary agreement that the ANC and the 7-Eleven had signed that sort of said, there was a restriction on playing music, so we've been operating back on that status quo. I think in terms of the music idea, I hear you, but I think the thing that sticks out to me is there was almost an immediate backlash from constituents last time the music was being played, the opera music. And so that's got me hesitating in a big way about sort of reopening a can of worms. And then, and Rochelle sort of nodded to this as well, but, there are no loitering laws in Washington, D.C. Like it's sort of a complicated issue without the extra music component. I'm happy to continue a conversation with the community. I think you've got two businesses that are relatively new next to you now, which maybe weren't there, with Stellina and Rebel Taco, not to mention Delana right across the street from you. So probably there's got to be definitely a little bit more engagement with the community. And then the folks, Rochelle is right. I think we can try to re-engage the constituents who've got noise concerns and connect them with you and just have a conversation. I welcome a lot of the points you made about things that are coming down the pike. I think judging from the stories I hear coming out of the 7-Eleven, the 24/7 security makes a lot of sense, as do the additions to sounds like an upgraded camera system. So I certainly look forward to working with you and continuing this dialogue. You've got a lot of questions in the Q&A, so that'll probably cover any other comments that I'll make. But thanks again for coming.
Thank you, and thank you for your help. I do have Mike Elves on the team that's on the call. I don't know if he can speak or it's just I. But we did work with Metro PD to look at the cases when the music was playing compared to when it was not playing. And the cases, incidents around the store were substantially lower during that period of time. So even if it's just certain hours of the day, I don't want to disrupt the community, but it is something that works. So I appreciate your partnership in trying to help bring this back, because I do think it's a much more peaceful way of trying to bring some control to the loitering. Because even since those new businesses opened, I was in the area last week, and staying across the street could visibly see a lot of folks sleeping on the table, sleeping on the restaurant, seating areas throughout the night. So I don't, unfortunately, this problem I think is larger than just us. So, but we do owe it to our team and the community to keep our team safe inside the store for sure.
So Jim, just your team is phenomenal in the morning. I really give them kudos because they take it, let me tell you. And so, but when they go out front, and the guy that does the power washing and the team member that does the more presence at 7, we're out here, we're monitoring the situation, I think helps, especially the power washer guy.
Okay.
You like the power washer guy.
Well, thank you for your feedback. And, we're committed to having regular cadence for cleaning and keeping up the building. I've also enacted virtual visits to the store. While you don't see me necessarily in the store, we can use technology to take me out front of the store, take me around the store, and really make sure we're staying up on our operations. But we're here to make sure we're representing the community.
So we do have a handful of questions in the Q&A. So since you're on a mobile device and probably having a hard time managing all of those different parts of the screen, I'll go ahead and just read a few of them off to you for you to address. One is, how do your tools for providing security within the store differ from those for providing security to the storefront? Are there any obstacles operating within the district that are preventing the loitering outside the store?
I think that this was, so as far as the technology goes, the technology that I was mentioning is, in violation of the music ordinance that we have. So that's where the help is needed from that perspective. As far as what we have, the technology that we have inside the store, we have a very up-to-date, camera system that's in the store already. What we have, that we're reviewing is it's a more aggressive technology to really make sure that folks that are shopping in the store know that they're on camera. As far as the loitering laws and such that community, I understand that, unless the loiterers are, being aggressive towards our customers or really, for the safety of our team, for the safety of our customers, it's been more so to approach them nicely and ask them to leave, but we can't really force them to leave because it's public space unless they're in our property and in front of the store. So certainly open to other suggestions. When I was in the community recently, I also walked other retailers to try and gain some insight. But if there are things that we can do that we're not doing, certainly I have the team on this call to learn here, but we've engaged the police. We believe we have a good relationship with Metro PD, but there's a fine line between what we can do and what we can't do as far as deterring the loitering to the front of our building.
Thanks for that. And then I'll just mention two other topics that are brought up in the Q&A for you to address as you see fit. One is there are piles of trash, basically about trash removal, disposal. It's feeding the rat population. Seems to be a consistent problem. And another one is that there's a fence behind the 7-Eleven that seems to have been knocked down. And do you have plans to fix that fence?
So in regards to the trash, operationally we own that, and as I was mentioning with the virtual visits, we get a lot of help from the community in keeping the front of the building clean. Operationally, when it is safe to be outside, I don't ask my team to go outside when it's dark outside at night to really go down that alley. I don't think that's a safe practice for our business, but we will. You'll see us continue to stay focused on the cleanliness surrounding the store to include that alley. There are parts to the fence. I'll look into that. I'll actually be at the store tomorrow. I'm not particularly sure which fence you're speaking of, but I will research that and make sure if it's ours, I'll get that corrected.
Great. And so there's one final question, which is also one that I was going to ask, but it's also coming in from a constituent. And this is actually about a different store location at the intersection of Rhode Island and 7th. That store has been vacant since a fire about a year ago, and it's just sitting there with a chain link fence around it. And it's a target for frequent graffiti, and it's an eyesore. And it's got surface parking out front, which is clearly not like where we want to be in a 2022 world with, mobility and safe sidewalks. Like surface parking is very, 1960. So what are your plans for the Rhode Island and 7th 7-Eleven? I've looked it up. The parcel is owned by you, 7-Eleven corporate. So what are your thoughts there?
Thank you for asking the question. I was prepared to speak about our Evolution store there at 504 K Street today. With this one, I will have to research if I could update the group, what our plans are after this. I would appreciate that opportunity. Just transitioning back to this area, getting this store up to standard for the community was my first priority, but I will certainly research that one.
Understood. And I would be happy to point you to some other members of the community, would be happy to share with you their experiences with the store. And if you're in the neighborhood, it's just up the street from the one you're going to be visiting tomorrow. So come on up to Rhode Island and 7th and take a look.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Okay, thank you very much
you.
for that. And any other comments from your commissioners?
We would love to see that 7th or Rhode Island space developed into something more appropriate for the zoning. So there's opportunities to sell it and develop it for housing. Doesn't need to go back to a 7-Eleven.
Understood. Thank you for the feedback.
Or a 7-Eleven with 6 stories of apartments on top.
Or another taco 7-Eleven. We love the 7-Eleven. We need convenience stores for people who are 24/7 like me. I need a convenience store. When that was open, that 7-Eleven on Rhode Island Avenue, I'd boogie on up there at whatever, midnight. We need a 7-Eleven up there.
I did not mean to in any way disparage 7-Eleven, merely saying that almost anything could be a better use of it than what Commissioner Eicher was talking about. What we're seeing today.
What about Wawa?
A vacant lot surrounded by a fence with graffiti on it. Anything can be better than that. So please come on up and take a look. We're
Royal Farms.
Okay, I'd like to say something.
Yeah, Commissioner Rogers.
Yes, I'd also like to say, I get the warmest welcome in that 7-Eleven. The staff is marvelous. You know, they always welcome me. Besides what goes on the outside, the place is perfect. You know, far as the music, there's nothing wrong with the music. You should add a little jazz and some country. You know, play some Ted Atkins. You know, that calms the nerve. You know, I noticed that they do it down east over, and that's a big shopping center. but I do have some bad points about that, you know, and I guess y'all new security right can clear that up, because there is a lot of loitering around there, right? And some of them a lot of them have bad behavior, you know. And when I see that right there, right, it looks so awful, right? I'll be saying that, you know. And my constituents, right, in the Plaza West building, right, the seniors, they scared to death to go around them people, you know. So that's a draw away from customers. You know, and maybe y'all could do something with that. You know, give them some of a playground to play at besides in front of that door. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans, for coming and listening.
Thank you for your feedback.
And, you know, I want to say that, you know, we always talk about the affordable housing. We need to have a place where someone can get an inexpensive cup of coffee. And Kevin's constituents, my constituents, me, I mean, there is value to the 7-Eleven. The end.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to continuing to make this a better shopping experience for the community.
Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll hear from you soon. Okay, moving
Thank
on
you.
to the next item, which is, item 15. Got Mr. Padro. Okay. Welcome, Alex. Okay. You're coming on over to the other side. Or perhaps we lost you. Let's
I don't see his name any longer. It was there.
There we go. Okay. The Honorable Alex Padro. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one ABC case before the commission this evening is a renewal of a Class C restaurant license for Rebel Taco at 508 K Street Northwest. For the commissioners and the community's information, hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays. There is a summer garden. Hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. This is a recently opened establishment. There is no investigative history. We did communicate with legal counsel for the establishment and invited them to participate in the ABC committee's meeting last Thursday. They were not able to. The business's owner was also traveling and not available. However, because this is a new license and there have been no expressions of concern either from community residents or through Commissioner Parlay, the committee felt comfortable in recommending to the full commission support for the renewal of this Class C restaurant.
And do we have any comments from the commissioners? Mr. Parlay?
My only comment is that, yeah, they practically just opened, and I did call out just to do the thing to see if anyone had any concerns, and nobody did in terms of constituents. So I'm happy to make a motion whenever.
Sure. Just quick check. Any other commissioners with feedback, comments, and from the community? And hearing none, let's go for a motion.
I move that ANC 6E support the renewal of Class C restaurant license for Rebel Taco and communicate that support to ABRA.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And then do we
Aye.
any
Kevin
opposed?
didn't vote. Kevin.
And any abstentions?
Hold on.
Okay.
Hey,
Kevin, you have a
Well, I'm
vote?
trying to come back.
Okay.
Wait a minute, hold up. I.
Okay, Commissioner Rogers, do you have a vote?
Something wrong with my computer.
Do you have a vote on this motion?
He said aye.
You said aye. Okay, so we've got 7 yays. Okay, thank you very much for this, and thank you for your service, Mr. Padra.
You're most welcome.
Okay, moving on to the zoning committee, Commissioner Nigro.
All right. Well, we had a presentation. This is concerning I always forget the number, Patrick. Is it 925 Fifth Street? It's for a extension of zoning relief for BZ application 19722. I see Evan on the line. We can move over Evan and Brad. And so the concerns was this previously was that the upkeep of the lot was pretty horrific in terms of trash and vegetation and graffiti and just mayhem and it being unsecured. And so we did not support the extension of the relief last month until these items were, done. So in terms of cleaned up. So Evan and is Brad coming? No, just you, Evan.
Brad, I did talk to Brad earlier. I thought he was joining us, but
He's on I can see him, but maybe he's not, he doesn't want to zoom in. But if you want to go ahead and discuss what you all have done and what the proposal is for the future.
Sure.
And the committee was in support of this for what Brad's going to talk about.
Yes, and thank you. And let me just say at the outset, congratulations for doing such a masterful job sticking to your agenda. It's 8:51 and you listed us as being on the approximately 8:50 start time. So I continue to be amazed at how this ANC operates. So kudos. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation I'll bring up here. As Ms. Nigro mentioned, we did hear in July some concerns about trash and lack of security at the site. I'll run through some photos just to show you that the trash on the site was removed in early August, if not earlier, and a gate was installed to secure the site. We worked with the Mount Vernon Commercial Improvement District folks to have the site treated for rodents on the 4th of August. And a couple of weeks later, on the 22nd, after we'd removed all the overgrown vegetation and vines from the walls, most of the graffiti that we could reach was removed. We are continuing to monitor the site to make sure the gate remains in place and that there's not any additional trash piling up. We submitted, and I think we shared with some members of the ANC and with staff at the BZA that there are signs of life in the hotel building business that we're seeing. Brad has gotten quite a bit of continued interest from the Marriotts and the Hiltons of the world, so he hopes to be moving forward with permits on that shortly. This is the pickup truckload full of debris that was removed from the site on the left, and a picture of the locked gate that was installed. This is when the Community Improvement District folks, or the city folks rather, were on site in process of painting over the graffiti that had taken place. All this vegetation and the Jersey barrier have been removed as well. These are some after photos showing the cleaned up site and the graffiti painted over. And I don't know if Rochelle or Patrick have had time to see it, but as Rochelle mentioned, we did get support from the zoning committee. Rochelle, I think you wanted to see a letter committing to making sure that we continue to treat the rodents to make sure they don't come back, and obviously continue to monitor the situation to make sure the graffiti and the vegetation don't come back either. So I sent you and Patrick a draft letter earlier that if it meets with your approval, and if that fits the bill, I'm prepared to submit that to the BZA online and make sure staff gets a hold of that for the record. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Could you please take your screen share down so we can see the commissioner group? Okay, thanks. Do we
So
have-
Evan, I haven't seen it because the gate's secure now. Right?
Oh,
I
you haven't
can't
seen
go
it in
in.
person.
How about that? That's how that works when you have a locked gate.
Well, there's proof it's working.
Yeah.
And any comments from the commissioners?
I'll just say, hey, great. I love how quickly that all mobilized, and I just want to congratulate my commission colleagues on this. Was some well-timed ANC pressure. We got some good neighbor behavior out of it. We're really happy to see the progress. I love the before and after pics. I looked at the letter; it looks really solid. So, well done. I'm happy to motion when the time comes for it, but I'm happy to defer to questions and comments from others at this point.
Any further commissioner feedback? Comments from the community? And hearing none, let's get a motion.
I move that ANC 60 withdraw its opposition and provide support for the extension of zoning relief in BZA case 19-722 and communicate that support to the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
So I have a friendly amendment, Patrick, that this support is with the property owner keep up with the vegetation management, the removal of graffiti, and graffiti and trash, and the security of the property.
I accept that amendment.
Mhm.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so I got Commissioner Nigro with a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Okay, and it looks like we did lose Kevin, so that's 6, no abstentions, no oppositions. And so thank you very much for joining us this evening. We'll look forward to getting a letter reflecting our support of your extension for zoning relief.
Great. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks for coming out.
Bye.
Okay, on to the next item, which is Transportation Committee, Alex Lopez.
Okay, so I've circulated a copy of this letter to DDOT with the commissioners. It's also linked to in the agenda they sent out. This is a an item that I really don't enjoy having to write about because, and this issue is related to traffic violence. It's related to members of our community that have been hit and killed by drivers in the 2 years since this current ANC term began. And with the most recent tragedy of the death of Michael Gordon, who was a bicyclist and was killed while biking northbound on 7th Street at Rhode Island Avenue on July 15th, killed by a driver, really felt compelled to draft this letter to DDOT to communicate how unacceptable it is that these 3 traffic fatalities that have occurred since 2021 have resulted in no significant improvements to intersections that are dangerous to pedestrians, dangerous to bicyclists, and dangerous to drivers. The 3 fatalities that I'm describing are first on April 8th, 2021, 29-year-old Jim Pagels was killed by a driver while biking westbound on Massachusetts Avenue Northwest near 2nd Street Northwest. On March 17th, 2022, 52-year-old Joseph Robinson, pedestrian, was struck by the drivers of 2 separate vehicles and killed at the intersection of New Jersey Avenue Northwest and New York Avenue Northwest. And then most recently on July 15th, 2022, 65-year-old Michael Gordon was bicycling northbound on 7th Street Northwest at the intersection of Rhode Island Avenue Northwest when the driver of a dump truck traveling in the same direction made a right turn across his path, killing him. And that last crash it was on the border between my single member district and Commissioner Eichler's single member district. The family of Michael Gordon gathered to celebrate his life at the site of the crash. Transportation advocates also erected a ghost bike, which is something that we'll see every time we leave the metro to kind of understand that this is a place where somebody has died and potentially somebody else could die in the future. And as I said, these three locations where we've had traffic fatalities since this current ANC term started in 2021, there have been no real improvements made or proposed by DDOT, and I find that unacceptable. And I think that the commission should find that unacceptable as well. So the intent of this letter is to do three things. I'm going to share my screen just so that you can get a visual. Be resolved that ANC 6E requests that DDOT brief the ANC on the status of all traffic safety initiatives at the location of the three traffic fatalities, as well as the immediate surroundings. Further, be it resolved that ANC 6E requests that DDOT coordinate with relevant single member commissioners and the ANC 6E Transportation Advisory Committee to conduct community walkthroughs at each of these three intersections and the surrounding areas with the goal of identifying traffic safety concerns and developing a list of potential traffic calming measures, and that ANC 6E requests that these walkthroughs be conducted prior to the end of calendar year 2022 due to redistricting. And then finally, that ANC 6E requests that DDOT incorporate feedback from the community walkthroughs to create and implement traffic calming plans for the areas around these three intersections. These plans should include both rapidly deployable and tactical measures, as well as longer-term structural changes to calm traffic and improve safety for all road users at these intersections. And that ANC 6E requests that these plans be made public for comment no later than March 30th, 2023. This was my attempt to address these issues that have happened in our community. I hope I could get the commission's support. If there are other things that we potentially want to ask for, I'm open to adding them to the list. But I felt like these three items seemed like things that would be the very minimum that DDOT should be doing every time there's a traffic death in our community. And I really think that it's imperative for the ANC to take this seriously and to demand some level of accountability from DDOT.
Thank you for this, Alex. I will also acknowledge that I feel very strongly about this topic, and I'm appreciative of you stepping up and moving this letter forward for the commission's consideration. I attended the Ghost Bike Memorial installation here at 7th in Rhode Island and was just moved by the outpouring of emotion from the family. And I do think of this life that was lost every time I pass by the ghost bike there installed in that little triangular, kind of triangular median there between 7th Rhode Island and our streets. So I don't want to, diminish the import of the three fatalities that this letter is focused on, but I would consider adding a handful of other spots that do also continue to require attention within the community, especially the sort of good idea gone wrong, kind of a flashing beacon installed at 8th and Rhode Island, which was featured on Popville recently as the drivers just don't stop. So, if you're looking for other sort of large kind of publicly acknowledged failures on the DDOT side of things, that could be one item that you could add to the list. Again, there hasn't been a fatality there yet, but also we shouldn't have to wait for a fatality in order to act on something that is dangerous and that we know is dangerous in the public forum. So, you know, this commission did support traffic calming and this flashing beacon at 8th and Rhode Island. It was eventually installed, but it feels like it's sort of a half measure, and it feels like it's making things more dangerous than safer. So I would encourage you to consider adding that item to the letter as well, and then encourage the commissioners also, if there's other trouble spots, such as perhaps Commissioner Nigro, I know you have some issues also that may be addressed by this letter already, but maybe not. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to the commissioners to talk about spots that you may want to have included in this letter.
So if any of my
Commissioner, Chair Eichler, can I respond just very briefly?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I think that there's a lot of work obviously left to do. With regards to more targeted requests that are not related, I'm hesitant to water down this particular resolution, which I think is focused very squarely on traffic fatalities. But I would be very happy to work with you on a resolution more targeted towards 8th and Rhode Island or other problem areas that we're aware of, and move that through the TAC.
Oh, okay, so I mean, maybe I misheard you. I thought I heard you inviting us to try to add additional content to this letter, but it sounds like we do want to keep it focused on fatalities.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. So any other comments from commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner.
So if my constituent, any of those on the call from my constituency, they're clearly aware of New Jersey Avenue, New York, and then I have to say it is really 4th Street too, and the tunnel. So it's that whole swooping area. But that said, and this is kind of pre you, Alex, so the New Jersey Avenue, what it is titled the safety project, was millions of taxpayers. It was a lot of money, and that has been a complete and utter failure. And that's one of the intersections you're talking about. And so we have now labeled the New Jersey Avenue not safety project. The only thing that is good from that project was the bike lane, which people love and use. But I talk to DDOT frequently, especially about that intersection, about the intersection of 4th and New York and the tunnel, and it goes on and on and on and on. But and I get it, I appreciate the letter, but I hate to say it, but nothing will be done at New Jersey and New York Avenue because of that very large project that, in my opinion, in my constituents' opinion, has been a complete failure, but they will not acknowledge that. That's it. There's your reality check. So that was a lot of money spent, and they called it the safety project, and it's completely unsafe. So I like the letter, but there's what they have told me.
Yeah, I think that the letter, I'm trying to identify things that we think that DDOT will be able to do. And you know, what prompted this was that, you know, the death of Joseph Robinson at that intersection in March of this year, we've heard nothing from DDOT.
Well, but
there's been no response.
Because they've done the project. That's what I'm trying to say to you is that.
Well, the project was completed years before.
No, it was completed during the pandemic. Remember, it was completed in 20.
No, I remember clearly, but the point is that if DDOT is unable to proactively prevent traffic deaths and realize Vision Zero, the bare minimum that they should be doing that they're not doing is reactively looking at places where we have failed our residents and making recommendations, making choices that that make our streets safer. That's what we need to start there.
So
I hope so, but I'm just saying what they've told me.
Do you have any substantial feedback to that?
Oh, I think we need to talk in that whole intersection. We need to add the New Jersey Avenue Safety Project has not been safe. I mean, I don't know how to, however we can phrase it. That is it.
That is something I would be happy to add in. that despite the New Jersey Avenue safety project, like you've documented it quite well on your Twitter feed, how that that poor lamp post keeps getting run into.
Well, we talk
that's
about,
that's
but
something
that intersection,
absolutely
but we're not, forget the lamppost. That intersection you're referring to is also, my constituents talk about people still try and speed up to get to the highway. Now, they will point out to you where the victim was, you know, they were going northbound, right? And so a lot of the concern is when people go southbound. And so they're actually, and I'm not going to delve into how this poor gentleman was killed, but you know, there was questions whether when was a light green and all this type of stuff. But I'm just saying the overall, their response has been, we spent all that money. And in my response to my constituents, nothing has changed.
I mean, I think this is something we all know about DDOT as much as I need to say it. Like after they've done the projects, they kind of don't like to do more community engagement. You know, it's like kind of a see you later. You got to kind of pull teeth to make them follow back up. I will say for my part, if you're looking for a hook, you know, Cobb Park is coming, and you know, you brought up the fatality on Massachusetts Avenue. I mean, you know, that person, you know, that ghost bike is right within eye shot of that of where Cobb Park will eventually be, and presumably that'll be a place where children are running around and people, you know, pedestrians. It's not a safe environment. So I certainly think this letter is timely. I think it certainly makes sense to send it. If you're looking to like put a special emphasis on some of these, you know, you can consider adding a mention to the park being coming, but I defer to you on that. Otherwise, great letter.
Yeah. I think that's great. I watched the recording of the DPR community meeting from last week, and that was a topic that was raised by several people on the call, including yourself. How are you going to have an inviting park that feels safe when you're surrounded on three sides by what is essentially, you know, high traffic car freeways?
DDOT was invited but didn't come, which was extremely frustrating. So.
Right. Yeah, that's wonderful. Also at the that's a good addition. Also at the intersection of 7th and Rhode Island, I didn't mention this, but a couple months ago, I think it was in, I forget exactly, maybe it was April. There was a driver who left the curve going west on Rhode Island Avenue, hit a nanny who was pushing a child in a stroller, and then crashed into the Shaw Library. So that could have very easily been another tragic incident. There were injuries, but that occurred, and then several months later, there was another crash at that same intersection that took a life. So DDOT knows that these are problem intersections, and they don't act, and then this happens.
And so, you know, if you wanted to add some specific feedback to what could be done at Rhode Island and 7th, there could be a bus bulb out installed that then could be used to harden the turn, because the issue there was that there was a gentle right turn from 7th northbound to Rhode Island. You don't have to slow down very much. You don't have to make a 90-degree turn. It's more of a 45 or 40-degree angle. So perhaps some turn hardening there that would include a bus bulb out, because there is a bus stop for the 7079 right there on the southeast corner of the intersection. So that bus stop probably needs to, or we could move the bus stop to the north side of that section closer to the metro too. But something, we have to address the bus stop there and be able to harden that turn, so cars may have to slow down a little more, or, you know, and then again, in this case, it was a dump truck, right? The vehicles need to slow down before making that turn. Could be an option. So there is any other comments from the commissioners? Yeah, we do have one comment in the Q&A. If you need council to organize a walk with DDOT, let me or Brian, this is from Jean, let me or Brian, depending on the ward, know, well, and they can flag Cobb Park for DDOT on a recent walk. Okay. It's good to know. And then, so any other comments from the community about this letter to DDOT from ANC 6E in reference to 3 recent traffic fatalities in our area? I have 2 comments. Okay. One coming from Ben. I'll go ahead and promote you. Ben.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I get, this is more general. I get, we're trying to keep the scope for this letter kind of tight, but, a lot of dangerous driving I see at 4th and Mass particularly, basically anything related to 395, people are running lights and, not yielding pedestrians, all that stuff. When it comes to like asking DDOT to do something, one thing that you see elsewhere in the city are like speed cameras and red light cameras. Is that under their purview or is that elsewhere in the district? And how do we go about asking for those if we think as a group it's an appropriate request?
Yeah, it is under DDOT's purview. It was previously under MPD and they moved it under DDOT's purview a couple budget cycles ago. And I'm hoping that as you're saying, I want to keep the letter tight, and the recommendation or the request that DDOT hold these walkthroughs, I'm hoping will surface these traffic calming measures such as red light cameras and turn hardening. So rather than include everything in this letter, create that forum where residents can talk about the issues they see, and we could identify what needs to be done at these intersections.
Okay, thanks for that comment, Ben. And then now moving Chris. Okay. Chris Hart, welcome.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Alex, again for drafting this letter. I won't add to the list of intersections, but I mean, I have a laundry list of potential candidates, including 7th and Mass and others that I'm sure people are aware of. But I think in terms of the letter specifically, I think, Rochelle, what you were saying about New York and New Jersey, and Patrick, when you raised Cobb Park, it made me think, that intersection at Mass and 2nd is also an intersection that has been redone fairly recently. And I think that what that highlights is that what DDOT is doing now is not sufficient. So just, wanted to highlight that point, Alex, and to the extent that it makes sense to highlight it in the letter, I think that's important.
Thanks for that comment. And I think actually one might say that DDOT's designs are focused on car movement, and that is actually making these intersections less safe for pedestrians.
For sure. And that's definitely the case coming out of the tunnel onto 2nd and across Mass Ave.
So thank you for that feedback. Any comments, Alex?
No, I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for joining tonight, and thanks for also joining at the Transportation Committee last week.
Okay, great. So if there's no further community comments, no further commissioner comments, Alex, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that ANC 6E adopt the letter with some modifications regarding to reference New Jersey Avenue Safety Project and Cobb Park, and communicate this letter to DDOT.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Yes, second from Commissioner Parley. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, vote by signifying saying aye.
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 We have Denise. Okay, great. So it's unanimous for 7. Thank you very much, Alex, for bringing this to our attention and for putting in the work to put the letter together. I'm looking forward to signing it and sending it off to DDOT. Okay, great. So on to the treasurer's report, item 18, Commissioner Wiggins.
Good evening, everybody. I trust you've had time to look over the packages that I emailed you on yesterday. I want to go back in chronological order, if you don't mind. FY22 Q3 financial report includes the checking account ledger. The summary page for quarterly financial includes April May, and June bank statements, as well as April, May, and June treasury report. So at this time, I move that ANC 6E support and approve the FY22 third quarter financial report as emailed to you on yesterday, which concludes that at the end of the quarter, which was June, we had an ending balance of $67,766.30 at the end of the quarter. Provided I can get a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 It's,
Thank you, thank you.
Just to be clear.
My
sorry,
second motion.
sorry, Frank, just to be clear, did I hear Denise say yes?
I said aye.
Sorry, Denise, was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that was unanimous. Thank you for that.
Excellent, excellent. My second motion will be for the treasury report for July and August, which includes July bank statements, August bank statements, treasury reports for those same months, as well as a letter that both Michael and myself received from Shanette Grant, the interim director for the Office of ANC, stating that we will be getting our allotment of 4449.80 for our FY 2022 allotment. And they also said in the letter that we have no more remaining funds for FY 22. I don't know if they're, not that we need them, to be honest with you, but it was a line item inside the letter. So it sounds like they're zeroing out the allotments for the year. They may have something to do with the regions changing in January. But I just want to note that we did have that letter sent to myself and Michael as the treasurer and the chair. But I want to move the ANC 6E support the treasury report for FY22 Q4. As we know, Q4 ends at the end of September. So we'll be submitting the quarterly report for that period during the next meeting. So I move that we support the financial report emailed to you on yesterday with an ending balance of $67,348.41 as of August the 31st, provided I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, Kevin Rogers, Commissioner Rogers, second. Further discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And finally, we want to move that ANC 6E refund Michael Eichler for the Zoom charge for this month, as well as Karen Yaley for the writing of the minutes for this month. I do have checks ready for last month that I can get signed either tonight or tomorrow, provided I can get a second for these two most recent expenses for this week.
Wait, Frank, I forgot. I just sent you my receipt for my paper agendas. Can I be included? It's $34.13.
$34.13. Okay, I see it. And
I apologize.
I raise you a motion. I move the ANC 6E support the refund of $34.13 to Rochelle Nigro for her administrative costs for the meeting. Provided I get a second.
And just to be clear, the motion is for all three expenses.
All three expenses, correct. Correct.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I see Kevin glowed for a second with an aye, so that's also unanimous. Thank you. Approval of expenses. Okay. Thank you for your service this evening, Commissioner Wiggins.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well,
so next item on the agenda is announcements. Are there any announcements to be made from the commissioners?
My birthday coming up the 20th.
Yay! Happy early birthday.
I'll be 68 years old.
That's a young 68, Kevin.
Bless you, brother. God bless you.
Great.
Hooray.
Well, I actually just had one, but I'm not going to bring that up. So, and then are there any announcements from the community? Oh, and here we have Teresa Dubois. Welcome. So patient every month.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Chairman Eichler, and good evening, commissioners. Of course, my notes just disappeared. My computer's about to crash, but I'm going to get this out soon, as soon as I can. Hello to everyone. It's been a long, hot summer. I'm sorry I couldn't join you all back in July. We were doing informational sessions for our community grant program. But this evening, I am so delighted to announce that Events DC will be participating in Shaw Art All Night by hosting an activation on the west lawn of the Carnegie Library on Saturday, September 24th from 7:00 p.m. until 11:00 p.m. We can't go till 3 because we've got to get some sleep over here. But we'd love for you all to join us and invite your constituents to come by and say hello, because we're going to have an effing good time. That's the name of the activation. I'm so sorry, Commissioner Wiggins, but I'll explain right now. This effing good time is because we're going to have a glow in the dark foam party, a face painting, a fire presentation, food, and of course, fun. Can't be Events DC without fun. So we welcome you all to come join us for this effing good time. And you can look for an announcement in your mailbox sometime towards the end of next week. There will be a digital announcement that you can share with your constituents. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional community announcements? And hearing none, then it looks like we are at item 21, adjournment. So with, can I get a motion, or I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the 6E meeting for September 6, 2022. If I can get a second.
Second.
And Denise Blackson, Commissioner Blackson seconds. All in favor, by saying aye.
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 Okay, that looks like that was that Kevin, were you aye on? All right, we're done. All right, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. See you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.